those jumping on, we are going to try and get things kicked off quickly with our Tier 3 today. So this is, as you can see, my very first moments jumping into Illuvium 0. I have in front of me my Shard Bluff plot, and so really excited. Base builders are absolutely my favorite genre, and so looking forward to hopping in here. So let's go ahead and scan around a little bit. You can see we've got a decent amount of resources here. We've got some crystal deposits, a fair bit of lakes, some Solon trenches, Krypton rifts. Got a couple of different plants that, as you all know, we'll be gathering from today. So my goal is to crush out at least the first dozen or 20 levels or so, and go from there. So I am very much open to feedback from the community on strategy. I have not done a whole lot of research, although obviously it's been pretty minimal what you could do. But why don't we go ahead and get started here. I know everything is pretty flexible, so we're going to begin with our nexus right at the top of the land plot, and we'll give it a few seconds here. So I know that many of you may be newer to base building genre. One of the important things here to keep in mind is that whenever you're playing a game like this, the most important thing is patience. It's not strategy, it's not layout and all that other stuff. It's making sure that you're able to manage yourself and your emotions so that you can let the base build up over time without getting wrecked by spending thousands of dollars on speed ups. Yeah, Ricky, I definitely agree to a large extent. I think having the Tier 3 is going to make things progress a lot faster. Uber jealous of the Tier 4 folks out there, but still, Tier 3 is a very strong plot, and yeah, looking forward to seeing how quickly we can get this thing up and running. So for those tracking along at home, I started at 9:45 Eastern, and yeah, let's see what else we can get to. So we've got our engineering workshop built up. Yeah, I want to go ahead and jump into some of our extractors here and see what we can do. So we need an outcrop here. Actually, let's see. Back. All right. So we've got carbon, silicon, hydrogen. Alright, we need the quantum fabricant for all of our various fuels, and so that means we're going to have to upgrade our engineering workshop. So why don't we check out and just make sure we get the build order right here. So if I were to upgrade, I need the nexus higher, and the nexus is going to require, this is carbon, right? So let's go ahead and find a good plot of for us. Alright, that's interesting. I clicked, but it disappeared. Bear with 1 second. Yeah, there we go. Alright. No problem. Crystal deposit. Yeah, so our landmark, for those that are curious, is the halogenic geode. So this is going to allow us to much more quickly boost silicon or conversions from silicon. So definitely we'll be wanting to get that up and running pretty quickly. I would like to do some pass and yeah, you know, the biggest thing is always making sure that you can get started and have your plot working for you. So you can see 45 seconds we'll be able to snag 500 worker. We'll go and get that started. I think there's probably no reason not to. It's a quick window, and my expectation is you're going to want to just keep that churning unless you're actively planning on doing an upgrade to the extractor. So we'll keep that going. So yeah, overall, again, the tier 3 plots have a good bit of different opportunities for strategy, I think, because of the number of nodes that you're going to be able to activate. Alright, he's done. Let's see, what else? We've got a number of lakes down here as well. I would like to get all of the resources able to be active. So we'll keep those guys moving. Keep our paths off. Okay. Good. So, generally speaking, as I understand the basic meta, you're going to want some areas where you can kind of isolate a few buildings to focus on your scanning for alluvials, for the blueprints. I've got a couple options. Basically, for me, it's at the corners on the plot of my base. So you can see I've got a Solon trench over here, but generally down in the southwest corner is pretty open. Same thing in the southeast. So let's go and grab these guys. So does anyone know if there is a way to start activity on all of your buildings at the same time? That is something that I'm very curious about. So if anybody knows, that would be great. Alright, we've got to upgrade our Nexus now, which is not a problem. It'll take about 10 minutes here. We were able to get enough carbon already from our very first extractor. Ollivander, good morning. So, yeah, the sound is too loud. Oh, alright, thank you for that feedback. Let's alright, I can turn that down here as well. It's a good question, though. Does anyone know where I can actually change the audio volume in-game? Thank you for that feedback, Ollivander. Hopefully that helped. Good. And we leveled up already. Alright, I think probably at the rate we're going, my target was a little bit too low for level. So, let's see. 8 minutes on our Nexus here. No problem. Again, in the meantime, we'll just keep our stuff rolling to make sure that we've got the resources coming in. So, for those of you that are here, presumably you have played or have at least watched some other folks. What have you been most surprised by in the Illuvium Zero streams and in your own play loops that you've been able to experience thus far? Very curious on community sentiment for this. And while we do that, I'm going to keep building out my pathing here. Let's see. Actually, this is the right row. Good. All right. That'll let us loop around here and grab everything. So, goals. Build a storage for each element. Yep, halfway there. Collect silicon hydrogen, clear a couple plants for sure. Nice. So I can already claim a couple of the accomplishments. They're just going to give me some nice quick little reward boosts. And actually, what I should do, that was a mistake, I think. Having the ability to quickly get a burst of resources that's in storage, essentially, but for free, is an advantage. And so I'm not going to claim any more of these in the short term unless I actually need them to do an upgrade of some kind. Good pro tip for you guys to think about as well. So don't get resources that the game is willing to store for you for free unless you absolutely need to use them at that moment. So that is my recommendation for you from, again, numerous base building games over the years. So let's see. We will go ahead and finish off our pass here just because I am a type A person, as most of you watching the video know. And alright, I think we just got this last little Solon trench over here. Why not? We'll go ahead and build a little loop, connect him back to our main area, and then, yeah, we'll do the same over here. Okay. Very good. So everything seems loosely connected at least. This is probably not going to be the optimal layout as far as roads, but in the network seems pretty good to start. So let's see. We got 5 minutes on our Nexus upgrade here. So while that is running, I want to get things moving on my other base. So let's see. Yeah, we're going to hop over here to our other Shard Bluff Labyrinth. This is a T1. So, again, Shard Bluff is definitely one of my favorite from the overall distribution of types of alluvials that you're going to be able to scan for the blueprints. It was definitely my favorite. And so I'm gonna have the same general look and feel for both of my bases, but that's all right. At least for now. I might at some point swap a plot out, especially if I can get this tier 1 built up pretty quickly in the early days. Might be worth selling it and picking up something less developed. So, with that said, same deal here. We're gonna build up our base with the Nexus to start. Here I'm gonna throw it in the middle of the in the middle of the land plot. This one, you got a lot more flexibility on a tier 1 just because you don't have nearly the number of resources, and so I don't think it's going to be as big of a challenge to be able to figure out good spots where you can isolate some of the buildings for your blueprint scanning and so on. Good. So Ollivander, surprised by the number of bugs switching land plots. So I have seen some of those reports. I was in Discord for a while yesterday, even though I wasn't able to get on here and start playing early. So yeah, I think that's somewhat to be expected, but it is a little bit uncommon. Frankly, the arena and the overworld are pretty bug-free, which is super cool. So in general, that is a little bit surprising, but remember there's a reason that we branded it as an alpha and not a beta version. It still is in some of the earlier development days. So Ricky's question, I should share on Twitter that I'm live. I did throw a post up. Certainly you're welcome to amplify, retweet that and everything. I would not mind at all. So extractors here. We have our lake we want to go ahead and connect to. Same thing, let's get our little path out here, try and make sure we get maximum efficiency for everything. So that will take a second. So yeah, we've got a crystal deposit down here at the bottom, we've got our lake here, we've got our Krypton Rift, and we've got another crystal deposit. So 4 resources, so nothing too crazy. We are obviously going to have to go a little bit slower on the tier 1, but that's all good. Again, in base builder games, patience is your ally, and just knowing what you are optimized for and what you are going to best be able to build towards to get out of it. Again, you know, a tier 1 certainly is not nearly as strong as a tier 3 of the, you know, the two that I've got. But it also costs substantially less, and so it's all about resources and optimization, what you can get out of the you know, the value that you have in your plot. So, all right, throw our little mine down here, and make sure that we're going to start grabbing whatever resources we can. You only need to surround buildings with streets and not connect them to other buildings. That might be true, Ollivander. I'm not 100% positive about that. One of the big things, and I need to turn my resource efficiency numbers on. So I want to see the metrics. We can do this when I upgrade this crystal deposit down here at the bottom. We can see if the efficiency increases if I just put roads next to it, or if I actually connect it to some of the other existing roads. So it's a good question, something that's pretty easy for us to test out. Start our mining going on up here. So good. Alright, so we'll let him finish, see what his efficiency is at, and then we'll throw some roads around it. So while this is running, alright, we'll finish this, and yeah, no problem, Ricky. We'll finish this upgrade, and we'll cross our fingers and hop back over to the tier 3. The Nexus over there should be just about done, I think, based on the timing. So, what tiers are you guys rolling? Using guys generically, I'm not sure. Everyone that's on. Ollivander, Ricky, anyone else that's here? What are you guys playing right now? Now, Ricky, you won one of the tier 3s, so presumably you're probably running that as well. Alright, so we're at 100% on the efficiency here for this mine at the moment. Interesting. So I don't see any jump whatsoever on having the pathways disconnected or not from the others. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure the exact nature of that mechanic. We hop back over here to our tier 3 though, and we'll see. I want to show the efficiency and the resources there. Good. Keep our excavating and pumping running. Alright, Nexus is done, which is fantastic. So, our workshop needs 4 minutes to upgrade. What I would like to do, though, I want to make sure that I'm maximizing the extracting time. So I'm going to try and throw out a few more of the extractors here, at least to the base resources, the minerals and everything, now that my structure limit's increased again. And we'll eventually get to where we can build the quantum fabricant after we upgrade the engineering workshop a bit. But at the moment, I want to make sure that we've got good income of everything. Ricky's 8 tier 1 plots got ignored, so some were sent away immediately. Yeah, I think that there are going to be a number of individuals that definitely decide to use a sort of loner model, which makes sense. Okay, so I have insufficient storage at the moment. Looks like I've got 2,500. It's alright, something that we can definitely take care of here. So, yeah, let's go ahead and throw up some of the storage. Make sure, again, time is our ally here, so we want to make sure that we're gathering as much as we can of the resources, not having losses due to lack of sufficient storage. So let's go ahead and do one of each of our base resources, and that should, yeah, that's another 2,000 for each one. We'll hold off in here for just a second until we can get that storage built up. But again, these are going to be pretty quick little upgrades here to be able to build the storage out. I probably am going to throw my storage up here in the far northeast corner. Again, just to kind of get it out of the way a little bit from the rest of the facility. So let's do this. Very good. Good. Let's do another hydrogen pump here on this lake. Yeah, I've got so much carbon on here. It's pretty wild. Lots of outcrops. That was one of the features. I minted this land directly from the land sale, so I did not pick this one up afterwards. So this is one of those. I kind of got what I got. But overall, I'm again pretty happy with it. Good bit of resources on these tier 3s. Okay, Ollivander, that is tough to have your tier 4 get wrecked to be dropped down to be the same as your tier 1. Again, I know the nice thing is there's nothing, there's obviously no impact to the item on the blockchain itself, but it is a pain. Good thing is you're not going to get a disadvantage for actual resources in the short term, because nothing is going to be permanent from this current round of the alpha. But yeah, I can definitely see that would be frustrating. It's good to have one of each element in fuel sites because converting slows down, especially at the start. Yeah, that's good feedback, Wade. Yeah, I think in mine, I think I have at least one of everything. I got a Krypton, my Solon. Do I have a Hyperion? I gotta no, actually, maybe that was it. I do not think I have an actual Hyperion spot on this particular plot. So that will be definitely a little bit of a bottleneck for me once I get to that point. So I have to make sure that I've got converters up and running when we get there. So good call out, and certainly for anyone who's in the market for any specific land plot, definitely good feedback. If you've got at least one of everything, you're not going to be delayed too much off the bat with your resource gathering. Good. So that's a little bit on surprises. Anyone else? Anything? Is the aside from the bugs, is it about where you all expected in terms of polish and gameplay mechanics and so on? Any other feedback? While I've got you all here. Let's see. We'll keep gathering. Just keep pumping. That's the goal here. Alright, we'll go and grab that anyways. So, nice thing I think, if you've got your excavations started, even if you're full on resources, when you do need it later on, you can quickly hit it up. Am I a land baron? The game sound is loud again. Alright, I turned that down already, TSG, but let's drop it the rest of the way. I'll do this. Alright, did that fix the game sound? Am I a land baron? I don't think that I'm a land baron yet, but maybe soon. We'll say soon. That's probably an appropriate amount of time. Again, I love base building games. I played Clash of Clans for like 5 years plus. Was a guild GM officer. So I certainly like the PvP aspect of that. But the actual base building upgrades were fun for me too. Illuvium Slumlord, yeah. So, I'll probably not go that direction, Ricky. But yeah, for the moment, I'm going to be playing everything myself. Didn't see any loss when converting elements with your carbon converter. Yeah, I'm interested in that too. I've heard some of that feedback as well. That maybe there's some I'll say balancing on the resource conversions that needs to be looked at. Again, for starters, at least, probably not a big deal here. It's just going to let people speed up a little bit in the early going. What are your thoughts on the game, expectations versus reality? So I'm still pretty early here. I'm level 7, so really barely gotten started. Nothing substantial in the tech tree yet. I've got my engineering workshop being upgraded for the first time. So the elements that I want to see, TSG, to answer your question, are once we get a little bit further along and we are able to get to the blueprint scanning, that relative ratio is going to be very important in my mind of resources that you need, buildings that you need to have developed, percentage chances for the blueprints. I think that's going to be a really important mechanic that we're going to have to observe through gameplay. So I will definitely be keeping my eyes on that as I get a little bit further along. Graphically, it's really clean. So, I mean, again, for those that are watching, it doesn't even have the animations built in yet, which we know. But, I mean, the icons and everything, very polished. You can, even after just a couple minutes here, it's easy for me to know which of my elements and which of the various buildings are going to correspond with a given element. So I like that. It feels pretty intuitive. They need to rename converters to duplicators. Yeah, so I don't have any converters out here yet, Ricky. So maybe tell me a little bit more about what you mean with that. Meaning, it's not actually converting the resources. Actually, we'll grab that. So I'm not sure I get that yet. Ollivander learns that different tiers of lands play a lot differently in terms of the buildings that you need. I can certainly see that, Ollivander. As you, again, and when I jump back over to my tier 1, it's going to be a lot more limited, I know, in terms of what resources I'm getting naturally, and so you got to be more cautious about upgrade order and everything. So for sure, I can see that. I'm just going to do these quick storage upgrades. If I can. They're about a minute each, so get me up to 12k of each one, and that should let me do the upgrades if my estimates are right. Yeah, so only 2,700. So this is going to be an hour upgrade. Depending on how things go here, I'll probably end up using a speed up for that. Again, making sure that I can get to where I've got all my extractors working for me is going to be worth it. And as I understand, I just really need to get this engineering workshop up to level 4 to be able to drop out my fuel extractors. So those fuel extractors I know take a long time. As I understand, it's about 24 hours per piece of fuel, and you need those for some of the later upgrades of the Nexus. So that's something I'm kind of rushing to at the moment. So they said previously converters are going to cost more resources to get others, and they cost less resources. So a stage 1 converter turns 250 resources into 1,000 resources. Okay. I got you, Ricky. Yeah, so that's probably more of a balance issue than anything else, but definitely that makes sense. Yeah, one of the interesting questions here is at what point it makes sense to upgrade your extractors on a site as large as like a, like I've got with a tier 3 versus just building some of the new ones. Now, one note is that you do have a structure limit and you need to upgrade your Nexus to be able to go beyond 5, 10, 15, etc. So that is an important limitation that you're going to have to contend with, especially once I think you get some of these other buildings out, the science buildings, the marketplace, the statue. So definitely you're going to want to be a little bit cautious about some of those. That said, I suspect in the early going, probably throwing out most of the resource extractors is going to be worthwhile early, just to be able to speed up, because that way resources are never going to be the limiting factor. It's really just time for your upgrades. So again, I'm going to do this one last storage unit. Upgrading storages is not fun. In fact, it's always one of the least exciting things you can do, because you're not gaining more resources, you're not upgrading or building anything that lets you do scanning or whatever. But this is one of those situations where you got to pay the man up front, and making sure that you do your upgrades so that you're not limited in what you can actually store is really important, especially as real life is going to be hitting, and you're only going to be able to probably log back in and quickly grab some of your resources for a bit. You don't want to lose them all to storage insufficiency, so make sure. That's again one of my life lessons from base builders over the years. Don't neglect your storages, even if they're some of the least sexy buildings that you're going to have on your land plot. Okay, so we're moving along pretty well. Again, we'll just continue running everything here. Yeah, we'll go ahead and grab that. Don't mind a little bit of loss. We can have it back to full before I need those resources later on. And in the short term, once we finish the upgrades here to our storage, again, I think it's probably the Nexus that we need to go ahead and hit. This'll bump up our structure limit another 10 as well, and probably worthwhile to just do that and get it out of the way. So let's go ahead. We will hit that, and we will use one of our credits for the immediate speed up there. 24 minutes on the engineering workshop. All right, so let's see. We're almost there on the hydrogen and silicon. Actually, silicon's there now. All right, let's get our hydrogen pumps going one more time, and I think we'll go ahead and take that shot on the workshop. Again, that is our limiting factor here. You can see structure limits okay. The quantum fabricant needs the workshop at level 4, so a little bit of a rush to that. That's going to be a 45-minute build time. The power station is going to be a nice little boost here. I can get that as soon as I do one more engineering workshop upgrade. So again, that's probably going to be what I rush here in just a second. Timing wise, let's see, how long is that upgrade? 24 minutes. Probably we'll get that started, and then we'll jump back over to the tier 1. Yeah, Botch, I definitely agree. It is nice to have the warning on the storage basically not being sufficient, so you're going to be wasting some of the resources. Let's go start the mining, and all right, I need 100 more. So yeah, I already started the hydrogen pumps running one more time. Definitely a couple things that I noted, and I'll give some feedback onto the team. You need more clearly to be able to see which of your extractors are idle. So obviously you can kind of visually scan around your base, and you can see if something's actively running. That needs to be much more transparent, in my opinion. You also are going to want to be able to quickly see, like through menus and through some other icons, status updates along the way. So those are going to be a couple of the pieces of feedback that I give. So let's grab this guy. Level 9 already, not bad. So yeah, let's hit the workshop and get him started. Yeah, thanks for coming out, Ricky. No worries. 24 minutes. This is that's a good question. I think I'm gonna jump back over to the tier 1, and we'll let him run. Yeah, so I've got 19 of the speed ups. What do y'all think? Should we go ahead and use one and just finish off the workshop? That'll let us boost our efficiency out here first, and then we can kind of keep moving and get one of the longer upgrades going. Yeah, wait, that's I am a little bit concerned about that too. So the feedback was that switching between plots right now still has some bugs to work out. And it sometimes costs you individual resources or buildings. There are obviously visual fixes that need to be addressed. It's not actually impacting your NFT land plot. But yeah, I definitely am a little bit concerned about that myself. Alright, Botch wants me to use the speed up. Full disclosure, as I mentioned at the start, patience is a virtue, and I recommend, especially in the early going in a base builder like this, finding some things to do in real life in between your upgrades and your build out that you're going to be able to do and not feel bad not speeding everything up at first. Since I am streaming this and I've got all y'all on the channel with me, I don't want to sit here for a full 30 minutes and wait for it. If it was like 5 or 10 minutes, it'd be a little bit different. So I'm going to do something that I would not be doing in the real, like the full beta version when everything's live, or in my own personal time. But for Streamer Pro, you guys get it. So we will instantly finish up the workshop, and that is also going to unlock for us the power station. So in just a second here, when our hydrogen finishes pumping, we'll have enough to be able to do the power station, and that should boost our efficiency for a number of our buildings as well. All right, so let's see, we'll build him over here. I tell you, I'm probably going to move the power station over to my storage block. So again, I think this is one of those facilities that as far as I know, you're going to want a number of these scattered throughout the plot, so that you're increasing the overall effectiveness of buildings nearby. For the moment, though, I've got extractors here, got one up here, and a couple here. So I'll probably end up throwing it down here near the hydrogen pump and the excavator. But again, want to get some boosted efficiency for some of the facilities. So, interesting that we do have 110% efficiency already on the mine. So if anyone is aware of the details on why we're already getting 10% bonus here, I would be very curious. I have connected, as you can see, all of my facilities, excavators and so on via different roads. So I'm wondering if it's just maybe overall, here we can test this out, if it's adjacency to our nexus for some degree. As we move that, it did not seem to change. So yeah, open to feedback for those that are already aware of how the efficiency might be increased without a power plant already in existence. Wade, do you think you can manage around 3 to 4 tier 2 while still having a lot of time to play the overworld, especially when buildings are near maxed out? Yeah, so definitely agree on the sentiment that once you get further along in your base building, it's not going to take nearly the time to manage as it will in the early going. Left monitor for overworld and right monitor for zero. Yep, I think that's going to be something that I'll be doing as well. I suspect that once we get it fully mobile, so I know we've got some capabilities already mobily for Android, and you're going to see more of that with iOS. I think doing your base activities and management on a phone while you're playing the overworld or the arena probably is going to make sense for a lot of people too. We'll get some of the cheat coins after the reset or in the real game. So my understanding is that there will be some fixed amount that's distributed to everyone at the start. So whether it's the 20 that we saw here or not, is definitely a good question. I do expect that you'll have some number that you're able to use. That's pretty standard in these types of base building games. There will also, I know from the live stream with the developers, there will be ways that you can get the speed up tokens via like in-game achievements. So if you see, I don't want to do that. No, I definitely don't want to do that. Oh, there's the X. If you see in the activity the goals section, you're going to have claimable rewards. So here, complete 15 daily goals gives you 5 speed ups. You're going to have that same type of functionality. It may even be this exact same achievement or goal, as we're calling them, in the real game. So you'll get some for free. Obviously, one of the key mechanics with a game like this from a monetization standpoint is to be able to pay for those speed-ups, though. A lot of people, myself included, like in Clash of Clans, you use crystals or gems that you can get, and you're going to want to at times pay for those because it's going to be much more effective than waiting. For instance, if you've got 12 hours that you're going to be busy, unable to log into your land plot, and you need like 5 minutes worth of speed up or something to be able to finish a building to start another 12-hour facility constructing or upgrading, you're generally going to be willing to do that. Now, one of the important points we haven't talked about is you would ideally like that to be divisible into smaller increments. So each of these upgrade tokens gives you an hour speed up to your building. You really want to have something closer to 1, 3, 5 minutes. Whether you have different units of currency of the speed ups, that's a common one where you can get a 1 minute speed up, a 3 minute speed up, a 5 minute, an hour, and so on. Or whether you just multiply this number by 100 instead, and each 5 or 10 or 50 or whatever is giving you a few minutes worth of speed ups, so that you can better tailor that, is something that I'd like to see implemented into a future version of this. So Botch question, how did I decide on the pass? So my pass are actually set up based on the layout of my various resources that I've got on the land plot. And so the way it worked out, I've got kind of this nice little row right here of resources, and my intent was just to be able to connect everything so that I'm able to increase the efficiency of it when I get various buildings on the extractors and so forth. You're currently mining Krypton fuel, and you get 1 every 24 hours. Is the number a placeholder because you need 300 Krypton to travel? Yeah, Wade, so my expectation is 100% it's a placeholder right now. To your point, as you do the math, you can pretty quickly figure out that you would only see from all 20,000 land plots, I think the average number is like 4 fuel sites per land plot or something like that. At one point I had done the calculation, because obviously it's not an equal distribution of tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. But generally speaking, you would only be seeing 4 fuel, so 80,000 fuel for the entire game. Remember a couple things. Fuel is being sold back into a pool, and effectively the production of fuel is going to need to scale based on the number of gamers that are using it in the overworld. And so this is going to be, the fuel extraction is going to be something that I think has to be dynamic. And so, yes, you're probably going to see it, overall kind of steer towards specific values early on. But as the user base grows, you need to have 5% of the fuel being produced by the landowners and sold back in. Otherwise, you don't have the right scalability into the main game. So I do think that we'll see that be a much more dynamic value. For now, I think they just wanted to get it started. And as I understand, I think you need one of some of the different types of fuel in order to be able to do some of the later upgrades, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, okay, so I want to throw out another carbon extractor here. Yeah, because that's one of my bottlenecks at the moment on my Nexus, is being able to get enough carbon. But yeah, I would say just keep your eyes out. That number is certainly going to have to be rebalanced. For now, though, I think everyone gets the general idea. And that 24-hour cycle is an interesting one. Obviously, your other resources here, your carbon, silicon, hydrogen, those go a lot quicker. And so interesting that 24 hours is the maximum time window that they've set on that. T4 land, you get 4 fuels per 24 hours on a level 1 building and 8 on a level 2 building. So Ollivander, you're saying that it's 6 hours per fuel extraction on your tier 4 when you have like a Solon extractor built? Is that right? 17 hours if you surround the building with streets. Okay. Alright, so I didn't see any increase in my pump or my excavator here by completely surrounding them. But again, I did see the jump, obviously, as the power station got closer to them. So, not sell, I want to move. So, as you can see, as it gets closer and closer and closer over here, I see it jump all the way up to 117. So, yeah, that's going to be a nice little strategy play that you're going to want to be focusing on, I expect, within your bases, is figuring out the right layout of the various power stations, the right balance of having those built out, because again, they do cost resources, so they're not free, but yeah, for sure being able to balance that along with the total building cap that I think you're going to be operating in is important. 3 plants grow back every day. Yeah, so this is interesting. I'm going to clear a couple of the plants. Do you know what time of day, Wade, the plants actually come back in? Has it been announced? Is it like midnight UTC, like during normal, reset windows for the game? So I do want to clear those. Again, it's going to give me the speed ups, and if they're recovering every day, that's definitely going to be a nice little advantage to keep farming up your plants along the way. All right, 23,000. So we do need to pump up hydrogen storage. 8 minutes. All right, 8 minutes is okay. Let's do that. Again, don't neglect your storage units, folks. Those are the lifeblood of your facilities. So, my plot the time was 17 hours since you surround it with streets, and the amount of fuel increased from 4 to 8 when leveled up, so basically doubled it. Now that's an interesting question. Is it going to continue doubling the extraction speed per tier, or will it just increase by another 4 basically as you level them up? I'll be curious to see how that works out. All right. So I think I want to build out a few more power stations. So I see, and for those that can kind of see my land plot, I've got overall 6, if I'm not counting this little Krypton rift here, I've got right in this segment 6 different extractors, and so once I fully fill those up with the excavators for everything, definitely this is going to be kind of the powerhouse segment of my base. You know, I kind of spread around a little bit at the start as I was choosing which specific resources to throw my extractors on, but probably if I'm more focused on efficiency, having my extractors all set up right here in the same area is going to be worthwhile, because then I'm going to get more value out of a power station like this, because it will improve a larger number of the extractors at one time. Sabacha's feedback: paths only need to be adjacent to buildings. It helps with upgrades and building times, so surrounding buildings is best to make upgrades go faster. Okay, interesting. So why don't we see if we can actually, this guy is in the way, so I'm not actually able to make it all the way around, unless we do this. So all right, not sure, I didn't see like a specific jump in the speed, but who knows. Definitely doesn't hurt me to have some extra pathways built at the moment. I don't need the space on my base at the moment. Alright, so mining and excavating. Yeah, definitely the start all extraction button would be really nice. Hell, I'll pay for the thing, honestly. Or if there's a single facility that you can build. In some extracting games like this, there's a single building that you can put down that basically once you click it, it says either gather all your resources and or like start extraction for all your resources all at once, which is a single click. Definitely would be worth it. That's a good way to kind of monetize for quality of life. The more street pieces that are next to the building, the faster it does stuff. Makes sense. Good. Yeah, Wade, it's a good question. I know at one point Scoriax had done a couple calculation videos on what he anticipated that would be as far as the number and tier of land plots that you would need to effectively fund your overworld activities. One important thing to keep in mind is unless you've got like a tier 4, you probably don't have the right distribution of fuels that you're going to need, because in the overworld today, all we're running is Krypton, because there's no charge for additional Hyperion and Solon for the shard curing and for the crafting mechanics and so on. In the actual game, again, unless you're, or maybe if you have like a perfectly optimized tier 3 plot, you're not going to have the right distribution. The better way to look at it, I think, is basically what total sales can you get from your land plots and then just what's the overall income and the amount of money that you're spending to run in the overworld. I know most people don't like thinking about it that way, but that's the way that I would encourage you to kind of position it, is instead of how many Krypton do I actually need from my plots to fund my travel, just look at it as a big sort of, how many dollars or euros or whatever or ETH am I getting per day, and how much am I spending in the overworld. And I think that'll probably be easier for most people, because the nuance of the land plots is going to be pretty great. Do you know what's the max level of our buildings? I don't know what it will be at launch. We'll go and grab that anyways. I don't know what it will be at launch. I do know, and the team has said this, that it will be ever evolving. So even once you have finished developing your land plot, that's only going to be finished for a relatively short time period, because they will continue increasing the building level cap over time. Now, it may be slow, it may be 6 months between upgrades or whatever, but your Illuvium 0 land plot will probably never be finished, in the sense that you just don't have upgrades and all you're doing is blueprint scanning and fuel gathering. So keep that in mind, and that doesn't include obviously any of the other activities that have been talked about with land plots, just expanding the genre to go a little bit further into the base building space. So yeah, I think for starters we'll know kind of at launch what's the maximum, but I have not heard that number at the moment. If someone else has, feel free to put it in the chat and I can share it with our community here. Yeah, good. So 50 seconds left on our storage, which is nice. So again, that's going to give us the ability to hold enough hydrogen to go all the way on the engineering workshop, which is huge. That's the next upgrade that's going to get us to the quantum fabricant. Again, the Nexus needs to be upgraded as well. This is going to be a 2-hour run. I will speed that one up here in just a second. And once that's done, nothing is going to be stopping us from being able to work on our fuel structures. So that's going to be one of the pushes. Another note here, you do need 40k of the carbon, so I am going to have to upgrade my carbon storage as well. Don't know the exact order here. Probably, yeah, I think I'm going to want to do the Nexus, because that's going to increase the structure limit. I can then throw out the last of the extractors. We're going to speed this guy up. Yeah, so that's going to give us enough space to really be able to quickly get all the resources, because 50k is a fair number that we're going to need for the fabricant. So I want to at least get all the carbon down that I can, and have those. I may even upgrade a few of those. We'll see how it goes here, timing wise. Again, I have not upgraded any of my resources actually, the extractors yet. I've just been running the base version, focusing instead on upgrading my buildings to be able to get out my various fuel extractors, because again, that's going to be a bottleneck for sure. Could produce more fuel if it's needed for other games and not need to sell new plots already. Yeah, Ollivander. So yeah, the way to think about creating and extracting your own fuel is basically as just an income source, in my opinion. I mean, again, people are going to look at it different ways, and that's fine. Certainly whatever way people want to think about it is okay. But I would view it as more or less an income, kind of semi-passive income stream that's funding your ability to play in the overworld. Will I focus on developing only my shard bluff or other land plots? So for those that I think missed earlier on when I showed it. I currently only have Shard Bluff land plots. I've got a tier 1 and a tier 3. Obviously you can see me on the tier 3 right now. I'm trying to keep the tier 3 running as actively as possible here, because right now there's still a number of bugs in this build out of alpha, and I really am trying to avoid switching over to the tier 1, and I will not be switching to the tier 0 to build that out at all until the bugs are fixed. I don't want to get negatively impacted by it, a bug that ends up taking a few days for it to get worked out, so that I can't effectively develop my tier 3 plot. So I'm going to try and stay mainly on tier 3 here. In the actual game, I've gone back and forth on more plots. I know that I'll want to run at least 2, maybe more. Part of the challenge is just the number of projects that I'm involved in Web3. I do have limited time for gameplay. This is, again, a genre that I really enjoy, though, so this is... playing this while I'm also working on other activities, especially being able to interact with the Illuvium community, is kind of a win-win across the board. So I will be playing this, I'm not going to say non-stop, but in perpetuity, with at least a couple plots. It kind of depends on how quickly, though, I'll be able to get up to kind of that mid game state where it's not taking nearly as much time per day. I would like to have at least one other region represented with my plots, but I love the ratio of the affinities that you can capture the blueprints for in Shard Bluff, which is why I focused on this. When we did the land streams, gosh, almost 6 months ago, I had done a number of calculations on what I thought would be the most value added. So I looked at sentiment analysis within the Discord, and you could pretty easily see that fire and the earth were by far the 2 best when you did ratios of the individual alluvials, how often people were talking about them, the sense of relative strength. I know things are going to get rebalanced once the game is a little bit further developed, but overall I think this is the best distribution as far as regions, which is why I'm in Shard Bluff. I have to admit, though, it would be nice to have just a different background and kind of look and feel to the land plots. So I may end up picking another plot that I can run later on. But I really like having the powerful tier 3. Again, I've got right here in the middle of my landmark, and some of those advantages of just not having to constantly be, swapping out different. To different plots, jumping back and forth, just being able to really focus on one for the majority of my time is, I think, going to be a positive. Yeah, I have to say it is easy to switch between your land plots, right? This single, we'll start that. This single click, really straightforward, honestly. So if I just want to jump up here, I just click on it and I'm over. That's a lot easier than I was expecting it to be. So that's certainly one of those activities that the team has done a good job of. Jimbo, good to see you out here too, mate. The face of Illuvium joining us. It's a pleasure as always. Botch, thanks for that feedback. I mean, again, when I found out about Illuvium, part of the reason that I was attracted to it was I understood the genres of games, because they're genres that I've played for literally decades. I mean, I've played games for over 3 decades, and I could see the appeal of having Web3 elements integrated pretty quickly. All right, I think I've been neglecting building out a structure for the moment. That's interesting. All right, let's go ahead and throw him out here. So for those that can see, I've got a power structure. I've got a power structure right here in the back behind these, but as I kind of move it around, yeah, this is probably the optimal position at the moment, just kind of right there in the middle. But having a second one will definitely speed up a lot of the extracting that I've got going on. And they're pretty quick to get those power structures in place. All right, so again, Nexus 4 is done. We need to get a little bit more hydrogen and silicon, and then we can do our engineering workshop up to 4, which will then let us do the fabricant. So that is going to be what's up on tap as soon as we finish with this power facility. Joshua, good to see you too, mate. Outside initial launch scope for land. How can we bring further utility to the land for holders while making Tier 0 land a more attractive onboarding tool? So those are good questions. How can we bring further utility to the land for holders? Let me take that one first. So I would say that having utility is going to be very much in the mind of the owner. For someone who owns land and it's primarily as a, I'm gonna say basically an investment thesis, and they're wanting to basically just generate fuel for the main game. I think those individuals, they're not really looking for additional gameplay mechanics. They're not really looking for anything outside of just kind of value extraction in a gamified way. Those individuals, I think the only way to effectively do what you're suggesting is if we were to add some other elements of extraction, give them some kind of additional ETH or whatever. I'm not really sure that's warranted. We're going to see as things progress, what kind of income you get from the various land plots. I do think some of the, I'm going to call it the metagame around land plot buying and selling is going to appeal to a number of traders. We've already seen that over the past months, and now that you've got nuance that will be coming to individual land plots in terms of how they're developed, how efficiently they're set up, we're going to have more visibility onto the value of each of the fuel types. I know that we're trying to balance those effectively, but those components in my mind are going to be the pieces that give utility to those that want them, just kind of from a value extraction standpoint. There are a number of players that are again, they're just base builder fans, myself included. The best way to add additional value is to add more mechanics, right? So building up your base is a key part, and most people that enjoy base builder games, they like seeing the progress over time, and so I definitely expect that we'll see more opportunities. I had thrown out a couple ideas. I don't love the the combat structure where your base itself is under attack, but we got to figure out some ways to integrate with the lore of Illuvium in ways that are meaningful while using your land plot. So again, leaning more into the alluvials that are on your space, the DNA scanning. There's a number of ways that I could see that enhanced. So for instance, you could say that once someone scans a particular alluvial on your plot, in addition to the blueprints that we have today, you could create power-up items that could increase the base stats of that alluvial in the arena, right? And also in use in the overworld. And so, there's different ways that I think you want to make the alluvials the star of the show in the entire universe everywhere. And so anything that we can do with the land plots to better be able to facilitate that is a positive in my mind. So that's one idea that I've had that I'd like to see that again, if you can somehow increase, even if it's only in a slight way, the strength of your Illuvial for the arena, that's very meaningful. Again, people are going to then balance the cost of that versus the cost of a blueprint versus the cost of just using fuel for more travel to go out and try and capture other Illuvials in the main game. The second question, making Tier 0 land a more attractive onboarding tool. Frankly, as long as it's an interesting and engaging base builder, which again, my first impressions are positive here, having played numerous base builders in my gaming career. I don't think that you need to do all that much more. The question, can you build out some sort of quest or achievement structure so that there's something to kind of push towards, to go for as almost an end game state for Tier 0 players, is how I think that is probably going to be necessary to make it more of a long-term focus. But from a basic onboarding standpoint, again, this is equally as interesting as a number of free base builder games that I've played over the years, for various time periods. It's obviously not at like a Clash of Clans level, because you don't have combat mechanics, you don't have the multiplayer elements, but those are things that you could build out too, right? You could certainly add multiplayer elements in some unique ways. You could have Tier 0 marketplaces, and it doesn't have to be connected to the blockchain, but people could, try and push to build enough resources to build some major statues on their land plots or something, to where, you've got that target that you're pushing for. So those are a few ideas that I've got for Tier 0 land. I'm certainly curious to see what the community thinks as well. Olivender's curious how an MC will work. It's like one land, but you're able to build 4 or 9 different buildings at the same time. So, yeah, the mega cities, Olivender, are essentially, I can't zoom out any further, but view it like this. This is, like your land plot for your Tier 1. The size of this plot is just going to be 4x. So let's say that this is my Tier 3, and then adjacent to it down here, kind of in the southeast corner, is a Tier 2. You would just see it extended in that direction, and then further to the southwest, and then like the northwest. So you would just see an actual land plot that's 4 times as large as what you see here, with just the single land plot on it, if you have a mega city. So that was something that the dev team had shared in the interviews recently. Why is it a bad idea to give Tier 0 people the ability to earn low-tier skins? Jimbo, botting. Just as simple as that. You can do some things to prevent bots, but not having a structure in place that requires the land to be monetized just means that you're going to get people that build out literally thousands of AI run land plots that generate low value blueprints and basically make them valueless. And so you got to be real careful about protecting the community of actual players from that. And so in my mind, that's the number one reason why you would not want to have Tier 0 connected in any way, from the land standpoint onto the blockchain, or into have anything be generated as NFTs and so on. Make Tier 0 feel more like a game. I agreed, Josh. If we're able to, feel like it's a more interesting set of mechanics, I definitely agree. That's going to be a positive for the players. All right, I want to build out a little bit more of my carbon. I think that's actually my last base extractor, aside from my Krypton and my Solon trenches here. So then the question will be, which of these do I need to upgrade further? I know I need to upgrade my carbon storage here. And so I will definitely be doing that momentarily. That is, yeah, and then we've got the engineering workshop that I'll crank through and speed up. But I am curious. Give me 1 second. I would like to. All right. I would like to, I think, upgrade one of my mines and see how much stronger it is. It requires a crystal deposit. Okay. That's on a crystal deposit. So interesting. It was just, I guess that red was just an error. Yeah, I do want to see, and since I've got 147% efficiency on that particular one, I want to upgrade that extractor and just see what the value difference is. But for now, just got to keep the hydrogen going, because that is the limiting factor at the moment. All right. Jimborino, Jimbo, what was your idea that Botch loved? I missed it in the chat. Oh, he was asking about the tier 0 low tier skins. Okay. Botting was the first thing you thought of, but what if they're skins that are just tied to the account? So Jimbo, you mean basically like you can only use the skins for yourself? They're non-tradable. Effectively, they're like a soul-bound skin that you would get on your account. Yeah, I mean, okay, maybe. I'm not opposed to something like that. The question, if you've got enough players that want to run tier 0 lands because it gives them a chance to get a specific skin that they can use in overworlds. Yeah, that's okay for me. Again, the biggest concern I have is making sure that the overall economy is stable. For a light combat idea, have farm drones going out and stealing plants, and you need to defend against them. Yeah, I mean, Botch, I think again, anything that has the alluvials at the center of the universe is a good thing. So, again, I tend to favor giving them more priority in anything that we're doing in the game. And I'll give this feedback too. I've shared this, I think, on a couple of my overworld streams. Right now, the balance is too far on the side of shards. This isn't Shardium or any other game that the focus should be on capturing shards in the overworld. You really want to make the alluvial always the primary focus and goal of every player. And so everything should revolve around them. I mean, they're the characters. The lore is going to be built around them. The focus and the overall sense of immersion in the world, yes, it comes from the environment, but more it should be coming from the alluvials that are populating the planet that we've crash landed on. So I think drones are fine. Mozart is absolutely fantastic design character. You want to have a sidekick like that for sure. So I don't have any problem if we want to give Mozart a more prominent place. But I do think we should be steering towards using the alluvials anywhere that we can, and that would include any kind of in-game mechanics like that. Yeah, Blichter, to that point. Again, it's a tough balance question to get, because obviously if you think in Pokemon, Pokeballs are an important resource that you have to steer and manage, and so no problem with us having to do the same here with shards in Illuvium. But again, it should always be secondary, where it's just a means to an end, and it doesn't feel like I'm having to just spend days out here focusing on shards, and I'm never getting to spend time focusing on the alluvials. What I like getting Tier 0 Soulbound skins is it makes it so Tier 0 has a reason to use buildings that are already in the game, like scanning and research. Yeah, I'm open to that, right? I think that's a very good rationale. Oh, see, that's a solid. Yeah, that's a really solid amount. So I just upgraded my mine from level 1 to level 2, and that was a big jump. Interesting. Okay. So we'll keep upgrading our storage, as I mentioned again. A base builder, lessons learned, do not neglect your storages, right? You can see I've got all this excavation and extraction that could be going on right now. It's all stuck because I don't have my storages upgraded. Again, not fully optimized right now, but you'll want to make sure that you're doing that, especially in the early days where an hour here or there difference might mean a lot to pushing towards blueprint scanning. It's a little shard-centric right now. Interested to see if it shifts when alluvial collection isn't the only goal and PvP is implemented. Yeah, Blichter, and you're also bringing up, I think, passively another good point, which is that we don't have variance of stats in alluvials today, and the alluvials are not actually connected to your own deck. So, like, when you capture an alluvial out in the overworld, it's basically part of your collection, but there's no difference in that alluvial in any other. Once you have unique stats, though, that definitely changes, right? So that said, I think the challenge right now is it comes back to you still have to spend too much of your time focused on shards and not enough focused on the alluvials and the encounters. And some of that you can get by making the encounters a little bit more challenging, so you're at risk of actually losing fights. But again, I think I want to make sure we always have that focus on making the alluvials the center of everything that we're doing in the ecosystem. Yeah, but again, these are some really good ideas. And Josh, feel free to throw anything in the chat. I don't mind something long-winded, and I'm happy to always give my feedback on ideas. But again, the nice thing right now is there's a lot of potential. You've got really good foundational elements in all three of the games now. You can see everyone in the community can see the quality across them, and so the nice thing right now is being able to kind of grow from where we're at today to make this a truly interesting endgame focused platform that we've got in this IBG is super cool. So frankly, in a typical game, even when you see a lot of potential in an early beta version, it's only one game, right? The amazing part here is you've got 3 different standalone games that are all good in their own right. That connectivity between them and any places that we want to draw more connections just gives us so much potential here. It's really amazing. So I'm super stoked about where we are overall right now as a community with the various products that we have available, and it's only going to get better from here. So yeah, super exciting times to be able to see everything kind of coming into play that's been years in the making now. Yeah, good. So a lot of good questions on Tier 0 as well. I do think, and want to come back to Josh's point, using Tier 0 as an onboarding tool, remembering that Tier 0 is our only title at the moment that has mobile capabilities, puts it in a very unique spot in the Illuvium ecosystem. And so to that question of what can we use to continue to draw people in with Tier 0 is, I think, exactly one of the right questions that we want to be continually asking. So in general, making sure that when someone sees the ability to go in and play Illuvium 0, they download it from an app store, or Android or whatever, they go in and play, that we have some clear connectivity to say, hey, this is, if you're enjoying this, it might interest you to know that we don't have to talk about the paid versions of the lands necessarily, but to basically highlight that this is connected to multiple other titles that you might be interested in. And obviously they're not mobile titles, so we've got to make sure that that's transparent and it's an easy onboarding process. But overall, I think anything from a marketing standpoint where we can funnel more users from mobile into the main the main non-mobile games is a good thing as well, right? So people finding there's a lot more to the Illuvium universe than just Illuvium 0 is certainly a goal that we need to be thinking about as a community. So we'll keep our hydrogen pumping going. Yeah, at the moment, a little bit tough just because we're kind of stuck in storage. But again, once we get to 12K, actually, let's see. There, all right, we're over 12K now there. We'll take the losses and just let it rerun. So, yeah, we do have enough. As soon as we finish the storage here, we will upgrade our engineering workshop. And again, for the sake of everyone that's on stream with us, we will speed that up and then instantly jump back over here to the quantum fabricant. It's another 45 minutes. We're gonna need to have 40K's worth of carbon. So again, that's why I'm building up that storage now. We can kind of quickly cycle that through. And then we will be able to throw our Krypton and Gates and Solon dredges down. So as you can see here, I don't have Hyperion on this land plot, so it's a little bit unfortunate. I won't be able to build one of those. But for the I can build the converters, and we'll make sure that we get that up and running so that that's not going to be a bottleneck for us later on. Yeah, so I'll definitely need the lathe, which means the quantum fabricant. I'm going to have to level that up as well. But overall, all good. So, I'm curious, has anyone on their land plots gotten to the point where you are already scanning for Illuvials? I don't know if there's been enough time, like even for a tier 3 or tier 4, but I'm curious if anyone out here has been doing so. Josh is worried fuel will end up in a Ponzi-nomic state like SLP. The DAO has to balance output and sales from lands for fuel to be hyperinflationary over time. Josh, I don't think that's really a risk, because you've always got limited storage for the fuel. So and I mentioned this, I think, before you hopped on, but remembering that the overall amount and speed at which you're extracting fuel is going to be dynamically adjusted based on the real world usage. I don't see that as a risk at all. I mean, really, we've got the guardrails in place in the overall ratio, so I don't see that as a problem. And when we say balance continually, I mean, that's what Aaron's already talked about, the AI engine that they've got built that manages that. So I could be wrong, and obviously we'll have to see that in action. That's going to be a really critical element of the interconnectivity across the beta versions that we'll be steering towards. But generally speaking, I'm not super worried about that. Maybe I should be, but I don't see it as a problem per se. Because the team's already well aware and building out tools to support it. You can see as long as the building is encircled by a path, it decreases the upgrade time and extraction time. It doesn't have to be connected to the Nexus. Okay, all right, thanks for that, Wade. So definitely, as I get enough resources to build the fabricant, we'll start it at 45 minutes. I'll encircle it, and then we'll see we'll see what that drops to. Zero falls into play to earn as a genre. Yeah, I think that's fair, Josh. We definitely, I mean, the construct of earning and then selling fuel back into the main game is, fully play to earn. The the main problem, though, that I want to make sure we're on the same page with is the reason play to earn is not sustainable. Has nothing fundamentally to do with the resources in a play to earn game. It's when you're paying someone and there's no real income that's coming from outside of the ecosystem. So earning a share of revenue from players that are willing to pay to go into the overworld to make trips, that's not an unsustainable model. Now, certainly you have to get the right balance, and the ratio in dollars and ETH and USDC and whatever being paid into the ecosystem balanced against the overall, the overall value that players are getting out. But I mean, fundamentally, that's no different than any other normal economic system that you've got that's sustainable and stable. So making sure that it's balanced is important. But again, I don't see that as a problem per se, because you've got demands on the overworld and the arena side. So,
yeah, buddy.
Let's see what else. All right. So,
got a little dude
who may come on stream here for a minute, wants to check out Illuvium 0 for the first time. He's gotten to see it as well. Yeah, SLP has no burning mechanism or optional breeding while fuel's a mandatory asset. Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, I think it comes down to the connectivity of resources across the games here, and SLP. Yeah, there's no demand for it at all. So it's it's very, I mean, there's nothing there backing it, right? That was always doomed to be a failure in the long term. Good. Let's see. We're going to keep our excavating running here. All right. Yeah. Hey, buddy. All right. Just got to get this carbon. So I did, for those that were following along at home, I did start the upgrades to one of my carbon extractors here. I guess I should say excavators. That should help us a little bit to get up to that 40K pretty quickly. And then we just want to keep everything else running. That's the main thing here in these early hours. But let's see, I agree. Josh, your worry circles back to maintaining land value and utility. Makes sense for time investment while also avoiding inflation. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think, remember the number of players that we have in the main game is effectively infinitely bounded. I mean, right? Okay, not truly infinitely, but you could legitimately have a billion players that are playing across the entire suite of Illuvium games, right? No game has ever captured more than a few 100 million players, but that's because innately different genres appeal to different players, right? And so, Fortnite is fantastic, and it's going to appeal to anyone who likes FPS. But like, I'm not an FPS player. There's no real appeal to me whatsoever. But in general, if you've got a suite of games and an ecosystem that's interconnected, and for the first time, this whole IBG concept that allows you to create creature collectors and auto battlers and base builders, and we can add an FPS, and we can add a casual or semi-casual games that different players are going to want to use. And so as you're doing that, and as fuel has value in these various worlds and universes, there's really no top ends that you could forecast on the value of lands, because you're able to essentially bring in some enormous numbers of gamers because you're not bound by a single game or genre because you've connected everything through the blockchain. Everyone's playing Shard Bluff. Yep. Walking Feather. So yeah, Shard Bluff, like I always shared, this was my favorite, not necessarily from like a thematic or like a lore standpoint, but from the value. And I also have felt that Shard Bluff is the most undervalued of the regions. Not financial advice, obviously, and I don't think it's a substantial difference. But I do think that people are going to want to consider Shard Bluff more than you would see in the overall relative costs across regions when you look at the Illuvidex. Yeah, and you've got dark mode too. Absolutely, Oliver. See, gamers know, I'm telling you. And if you know, you got to have dark mode, and this is the free way to get it in your land plot. So, good. How are we doing? All right, so we are closing in. So let's see. We started an hour and about 35 minutes ago. So we're level 19. Again, I way underestimated how quickly the leveling count would progress. We're working right now, for those that have joined recently, building up enough carbon that we can build our quantum fabricant here. So we push to be able to get our engineering workshop up and running. That proved to be a pretty good decision, I think, because shortly we're going to be able to finish our fabricant, and we're going to be able to build extractors on all of our fuel sites, and making sure that those are fully up and extracting, given that they take 24 hours, is definitely the name of the game here in the early days. Wade feels that Halcyon Sea and Taiga Boreal are too bright when playing at night. Shard Bluff is dark mode. Yeah, I have to say, from a lore and a thematic standpoint, I really do like Taiga Boreal. Part of this is that. Hang on one second, guys. I've got a little minion coming in that I've got to address real quick. All right. Back. Our little Illuvium Zero minion wanted to come in and check everything out, but he's now watching Leo. So those that know Leo the truck, again, if you know, you know. So yeah, in terms of the regions, I was just sharing. I'm personally partial to the theme of Taiga Boreal. I always like the kind of frost zones in different games. Everyone that has been around for a while too probably remembers the last alluvial competition. Actually, for those that most of you probably don't know this, my very first YouTube video that I ever created was my submission for the last alluvial competition for Illuvium. And in that, the character, or the alluvial line that I submitted, was an aviary, a bird line, based in Taiga Boreal. And so that's probably always going to have a special place in my heart as far as the regions go. So I have to admit, I am a little bit partial to Taiga Boreal. But again, Shard Bluff, from a value standpoint, from where I see the community, at least in this first set of alluvials that we've got out, I think is the highest value. Yeah, animating the lava, I agree. I think when we get some of the animations here, a lot of these regions and the land plots here are going to feel very different as well. All right, we are very close now. I think one more extraction of carbon, and we should be able. Yeah, that should do it to be able to start our quantum fabric at 40k. I'm at 40k. It looks like I must need a few hundred more. Yeah, there we go. All right, so it's a little bit more than 40k exactly. Good. So we're gonna run him. Let's run him right here. We're gonna start that. So 37. Okay, so that it says 37 minutes now. And interesting. So the question on if you have the pathways fully connected, still 37 minutes. So for those that were asking, it looked like I dropped it next to just the pathways that were already connected to the rest of my base, and that speed up was not really impacted by me adding additional roads and pathways around the outside. So interesting. Again, we'll keep playing with that with some of the other buildings that we have to build over time here. All right, so you guys like Abyssal Basin. That's interesting. I don't see that one quite as often, but definitely, yeah, I mean, that's one of the cool things with all the different zones that we've got. There's so many different feels and themes that we see. There's a little bit of something for everyone, regardless of what your preference is. The only one designed to be play to earn over play to collect. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Botch. Again, I agree. I think play to earn is probably the appropriate designation here to a large degree. The question, in terms of the overall earnings, there's a pretty heavy barrier to entry with the cost of the land plots. So again, I tend to view it more as kind of a gamified revenue sharing structure, like Revdis, than truly play to earn, because again, the meaningful economic difference is no one's just generating value and paying people out of thin air in Illuvium Zero like you see in other games. You're only earning if players are spending in the overworld and if they're buying the fuel from you. So, and again, the fuel, the Krypton, the Solon, the Hyperion, has sinks that are built in where players actually want it for real. And so, like, if no one ever was generating those three different types of fuel, players would still be putting money into the system, and so that earning would go somewhere. In this case, it would go back just to IOV token holders, which is fine, right? You don't have to have this sort of a structure and mechanic in. But again, I think long term, because again the gamification and the base building genre is pretty popular, this is a good way to build some of that structure in, as well as obviously, land sales are hugely profitable for protocol. And so if you've got a reason for people to want to buy lands, and you've got a sustainable economic connectivity with the main game, I think it's really a very smart way to create that sort of structure. Yeah, on Tiger Boreal, I do want to see the translucent ice come back in. I think that there will be, I think there's going to be a lot more final graphic polishing. My guess is we're probably 65 or 70% to where it's going to be from the final launch, and so I would expect that we'll see some more tweaks. Blichter, your plants look like chewed up bubble gum. Which region are you in? I'm curious. Some plants that make me want to act up. Not sure I'm not sure this really reminds me of chewed up bubble gum. I haven't seen enough of the other regions. Is the artwork all essentially the same? I think that's different, right? Each of the plants in the different regions is based on the actual assets in the regions in the overworld. Is I think where they took the models from. So I think it depends on which region you're in. For that, that was Abyssal Basin. Might have been RNG. So, yeah, the other good news, Victor, is you can absolutely gather the plants that you've got in your region, and they'll respawn. So, as I understand, there's 3 per day that are going to respawn, and they do give you the speed ups. That you can use. So if you don't like your plants, just grind them up to speed up credits, and you'll get some new ones the next day. Yeah, Wade. Yeah, Crimson. I like Crimson Waste too. That's that one's clean. I like the overall fire feel and mechanics too. That one probably as much as anything other than maybe Taiga. Make me feel like you're on an abandoned world. Some of the others that have, you got the more green, the more green areas. I'm not so keen on that. That just makes me feel like you're in more of an open, rural area. I like the kind of abandoned alien hellscape feel to some degree that you see from some of the others. Yeah, good, Blaker. You, keep keep those plants under control, and it'll also help you with speed ups in the game too. All right, so fam, we're gonna go ahead and speed up this. I probably should have done it a few minutes ago, but with our quantum fabricant done, we now can start as soon as we can get enough resources on our Solon and Krypton. Extractors here, so those take an hour as well, and our Hyperion lathe is going to be important because, as I mentioned a minute ago, I don't have Hyperion on this land plot. So let me see. So the fabricant takes 120,000 carbon. Whew. So that means we're going to need to either upgrade 2 more times on our current storage silo, or we would need to build another silo and carry it at least to level 3. Interesting. Okay. All right. So again, some of you that have been playing further, you may have already seen that. For those that have not been in yet, bottlenecks for your converters or your multipliers, as they were called by a few, your storage is definitely a bottleneck here. So we've got a structure limit of 30. Probably makes sense in this case to do a single targeted storage build, because again, we're going to need it eventually, and probably better for us to go ahead and bite the bullet and build it now. We can start a little bit at a time while we're doing some more of the resource gathering that will let us get enough of the carbon that we need anyhow. And then probably to do this single upgrade. So take one to tier 3 and 1 to tier 4 of the storage. So let's do that. Just a 2-minute jump there. All right, so again, we want to be efficient here, run as many things in parallel as we can, and so keeping your builder active, building things that you know you're going to need on down the line is, again, really essential, especially if you're trying to push to some degree. I know I didn't get started until a little bit later here on the build because of work yesterday. However, I'm pushing to see from a timing standpoint how far I'm able to progress. All right, so Rampfire isn't enough incentive to invest in Crimson Waste. Yeah, I mean, Rampfire is fantastic. He's obviously going to be the jewel of the set 1 for anyone that gets blueprints or captures him. But I agree. Right? There's some others, and the overall ratio I think are probably better on some of the other alluvials in some of the different regions. Yeah, Walking Feather. As far as the people, I saw a couple comments toward this too. Remember that the entire concept is that we're on an abandoned world. So I'm not sure about people. I did hear one interesting suggestion about seeing little drones, kind of floating along the pathway, doing work in your base. That seems a little interesting to me. Obviously, we've got Mozart as a concept that we could build off of, and the idea that you crash landed and you're developing your own land plot basically through the use of drones feels like thematically it probably works in with the overall lore. So yeah, I would be interested in seeing something like that. I do want to just wait and give them a little bit of time to get the overall dynamic structures in place, because we know that this doesn't have any of the long-term visuals that we're going to see as soon as they get that in the next version. See, walking lizards, snake critters in the background. Yeah, so to that point, Wade, I do agree, I think very much with that concept that we should see an occasional alluvial walk over your land. We've already got the graphics done for them. Obviously, I mean they're in use in the Auto Battler, so you're not really talking about a whole bunch of new assets. You are going to have to probably build out just a little bit to build out kind of the models, but imagine if you were scanning and you saw little Ramfy walking in here out of the corner, and your scanner was going off, especially if maybe there was some mechanic where if you saw the alluvial, you could kind of target your scanner onto it and have a slightly higher chance of catching it. That could be really interesting. I don't think you want to make it too high, because base builders are not designed to be like active gameplay mechanics in the same way that other genres are. But I think, if you're out there and you happen to see one and it gives you a 1% increase of snagging that particular alluvial, and just visually you're able to see it on your land, that definitely makes it pop a little bit more, and I think fits with the overall theme of the world that we're on. Good. Blichter, scalability of tier 0 play. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but I'm happy to repeat. And in summary, in my mind, tier 0 is a really powerful tool for us to be able to onboard users into the ecosystem. And so we want to make sure that there's value and meaning in the play that's going on there. So I personally really think that we need to have some reasons to do so. The best idea that we talked about on here that I've actually heard is having soulbound blueprints for tier 0. So you can't have you absolutely cannot have blueprints that are tradable that are NFTs from tier 0. It does not work. It breaks the economic structure because it's easy to bot tier 0 land plots. And so I'm incredibly opposed to. However, the idea that if you are able to get some interesting blueprint on your tier 0, and that gives you an incentive then to want to use it in game to jump over to play the overworld and or the arena, that I think is an interesting mechanic that makes sense for us to put in. Again, we've already got the blueprints available, so it's just a matter of choosing which would be available for tier 0 versus the non-tier 0 plots. I do think that having some more mid and end game focused content is going to be important. Developing your base to be able to progress to scan alluvials is an interesting mechanic. It doesn't have enough longevity and permanent entertainment value to, I think, keep people for the years that you want. So I do think building that out further. ideally, if you can do it in a way that has multiplayer functionality somehow, whether it's that you have your own tier 0 marketplaces that are up and running and you're essentially just able to gather and trade your resources with other tier 0 players, and you can then use that to develop your land plots in interesting ways. I think that's a game that would have enough entertainment value that people would play it, and that's a good kind of onboarding mechanic into the ecosystem. Wade, I like the comment on Mozart. I do. When I talk about drones, I think Mozart always deserves a special place in the ecosystem. So I'm not really thinking like you have 50 little mini Mozarts running around, but having just drones that are probably less special than Mozart is makes a lot of sense to me as well. Are alluvials the only creatures on the planet? It would make more sense to have a random insect fly by than a whole alluvial pop up. So this is a good question from a lore standpoint, Jimbo. My take is that basically all animals and creatures on the planet are alluvials. And I could be wrong, and we could see that's not how Aaron and the lore team have envisioned the development within the ecosystem. But again, in the same way that in Pokemon, basically every, you don't have just a dog in Pokemon. Every animal, everything in the animal kingdom basically is a Pokemon. And I see that kind of being the same way in Illuvium. And so, when we talk about like the spider IIP, you can have spiders that might be smaller that are alluvials. Maybe it's going to be a larger one. But if you see a random insect, I think it should be sort of themed as an alluvial. Whether it's an alluvial that's in set 1 that we can actually use or capture is a different story. I don't think that has to be the case per se. But overall, I think you want to lean into alluvials being sort of the main occupants of the planets, regardless of their size. So, and maybe that's just maybe that's just a classification question that's kind of irrelevant. As long as you've got, an active and interesting world that you're running, you can certainly, classify something as an alluvial node as you see. Yeah. Good. So let's talk about Illuvium 0 other endgame structures, right? So we've talked. I mentioned kind of the marketplace, and in that instance, you're leaning into the economic metagame. And so the question, if you want to have tier 0 land that's able to trade, that can make sense. Obviously, anything that you can connect with other people and have more of a cooperative experience or competitive experience, gives a game more longevity too. And so when we think about, competition, you've got economic competition, you've also got like combat competition or building or efficiency competitions that you can lean into. Again, I think the combat mechanics against other players are something that we have to figure out how that would fit within the lore and the framework. I would probably favor, if we're going to do something like a Clash of Clans concept where you can develop and build out units, it costs resources, of course, that that you would have to spend. So let's say that we lean into the drone concept, or we lean into like combat alluvial concepts of some kind. You can build out different types of attack drones. I favor more using the overworld map and having competitive points of interest that you're trying to capture, rather than individual invasions or whatever kind of equivalent mechanics of people's bases. So I don't really want someone coming onto my land plot and feeling like my storage unit back here is at risk because I didn't defend my base enough. that's an interesting mechanic, and it's a good mechanic for different games, but it doesn't fit at all with the concept in my mind of how we've built and targeted Illuvium Zero land plots, especially the paid land plots. But if you take the point that, okay, you've got this base built up, yeah, you've got fuel that you're selling into the main game, and that's cool, but, could I do something else, especially with some of the other resources, the minerals that I'm capturing? I want to be able to play a little bit more engagingly. Could I build up a little drone army, go out and try and capture, maybe there's a global landmark or something, or a handful of those that spawn within the Shard Bluff, and I can send my army out to try and capture and hold that point of interest for a certain time period. And while I'm doing that, it's giving me bonuses to my resource extraction or conversions back on my main base. And so that all of a sudden creates, again, an incentive for players to want to build up armies in this case. That's a resource sink within the game, which are always good to have. It's another engaging mechanic. Anything again that's PvP based creates the propensity for both esports and people sharing more and more information about it. It creates more engaging mechanics and like long-term replayability value. If you're always at the potential of having a global landmark spawn that you might want to compete for, and depending on how you set up those mechanics, if you could basically merge your armies with someone else, oh, that's interesting. So I think I'm the only person that has this account, but let's see. Interesting bug. So in general, I think having a multiplayer way that you could basically steer your armies to be able to, work collaboratively with other players, that also is going to just increase the long-term sustainability of the ecosystem, because players are going to have reasons of joining guilds and competing and working with each other for those kind of joint mechanics. So those are a few further ideas that I would say we could lean into. I mentioned that elements in Zero might be NFTs too. Do I think it's a good idea to have them as NFTs that can be sold? Yeah, good question, Wade. So when we're talking about the elements, for those that aren't maybe fully in the loop, we're talking about carbon, hydrogen, silicon, each one of those. I see no reason why. Now, I think you actually mean FTs in this case as opposed to NFTs. So all the resources here they're not going to be NFTs. They're fungible tokens, because my Krypton or my carbon is indistinguishable from yours. But the question of should they be blockchain-based tokens and or tradable in some way on the blockchain, I don't have a problem with that with the base resources. I think that we are going to... Oh, hang on one second. Good. We just finished the ability to construct our first of the extractors for our fuels, so I want to get that going. There's no reason, though, in my mind that you can't make these elements tradable. If we're already going to be able to trade within the marketplace to some degree, and we're going to be able to swap them out, honestly, as long as you have some form of a sync where it's not one-to-one per se, there's no reason you couldn't trade it on the blockchain. If we're doing it on like layer 2 with IMX or something, and you've got basically zero gas fees, then I'm all for it. Frankly, my opinion for most of the economic transactions in game is let players trade however they want to do so, and Illuvium should just take a little bit of a cut from it every time, and that's how you fund the development. And you're not then charging players to play the games. You're letting them just trade with each other, and as long as you have a non-super extractive ratio that you're taking as far as those royalties and secondary fees, that's the secret sauce in my mind for the entirety of Web3 gaming, because I think that's where you're going to see monetization models that have never been possible before, because players weren't trading real-world dollars, but here they are. We're talking about ETH and USDC and so on, and as long as you're able to engage in that in a sustainable way, I think the more opportunities, the more tokens or resources that you have that have value in the game that you can bring outside, then go for it. I mean, I think you're going to be able to do so independently anyhow in some different ways, so no reason I think not to allow that directly. Yeah, good morning, Tyrus. Good to see you out with us. So Blichter, Johnny mentioned today that a potential solution for grinders who end up waiting for buildings fuel production could be mini games within Illuvium 0. Actually, real quick, speaking of people that are grinding, I want to get our extractors out here and extracting pretty quickly. So I am going to speed up a couple of the buildings real quick. So bear with, and I'll jump to the questions in just a second. All right, so we need a little bit more silicon here. So again, I mentioned to the group, do not fall behind in upgrading your storage. Rule number 1 of base building. Obviously, I wouldn't say that I'm falling behind because I've been pretty efficient in my build order thus far, but don't let that go for too long, because again, I could have had 50k silicon already built up if I'd done that storage a little bit earlier. So my recommendation is for you to take all of your storages to level 3 pretty quickly on. Now, again, this is probably more for tier 3 and tier 4 land plots. Obviously, you've got a tier 1. You're not going to have the amount of resource income coming quickly that necessitates that. But if you're in one of the higher tier land plots, go pretty quickly to get your storage up to tier 3. I think you will not regret that. Good. So Blichter, coming back to your question on mini games. Mini games are interesting to me. I'm not opposed to mini games in general. I tend to think, though, if you're steering towards mini games, it's generally not good, because it means that your game itself is not engaging enough. And so I tend to favor, instead of doing kind of, especially if they're unrelated mini games, just build some more mechanics into your main game that make it more fun. And then people don't feel like they're stepping outside and breaking the immersion of being within the world that you've built for them by hitting a mini game. Now, part of this depends on what you mean by the term minigame too, right? So when I hear minigame, I think of kind of a small like side activity that's very loosely or not at all related to what you're doing in the game. The question when you say a minigame, so right now I'm upgrading my storage unit here. Let's say that they built a skill-based minigame that allowed me to demonstrate some level of tactical or design skill or of some kind, and maybe it's time-based, where I could click on this, and I have the option, of course, of paying for a speed up, but I also have the option to the side of going in and saying, I want to manually control the speed of the upgrade that I'm engaged in. And in order to do so, there's a mini game that basically challenges me to either do some kind of design, some kind of agility test of some sort, and if I succeed in that, it speeds up by 20% or 15% my build time on that particular building. And you could probably only do it once per upgrade or per new building that you're starting. that sort of a mini game where it's tied in directly with the mechanics that you're already steering towards, that's when I can get behind. And it presumably it's going to feel like the lore and the mechanics, and you're there helping to speed up your land plot development. So I would favor something like that as long as it's reasonably integrated with the world that you're building towards. Something that's kind of an unrelated mini game, though, I'm less interested in. I would say let's just build out some better mechanics for the gameplay itself that are more engaging, rather than trying to build something on the side. Weren't allowing elements to be traded to destroy the early game experience. People would just buy all the elements to build everything to end game ASAP. Yeah, so Jimbo, I guess one of the questions on trading and purchasing is, remember, at the end of the day, I can just buy all of the fuel that I'm producing from the game itself, right? So the idea that someone can just pay to basically get all the value that you could out of Illuvium Zero, I mean, that's kind of the entire concept, right? The average gamer is going to do exactly that. They're going to pay for fuel, Krypton, Solon, Hyperion, to go out and play the minigame. So, I mean, yes, you can make the argument that if someone's able to go out and purchase resources, it allows them to speed up, or to whatever degree to short circuits the overall time that you have playing in the minigame. That said, the purpose of Illuvium Zero is to create resources that are then going to be sold into the broader world for players to be able to use. So it seems a little bit strange to argue that that's a bad concept when the entire construct of Illuvium Zero is based around that idea. The question on, like, specifically, can someone short circuit the ability to play or to maybe to more quickly get to blueprints or whatever, the answer is going to be yes anyways as well, because the fundamentally, if I wanted, let's say that I could pay money right now in the Illuvium Zero store to buy speed ups. In about 5 minutes, I could be at level 60 right now, and I could have everything upgraded to have my scanner up and running for Illuvials. Now, there's a hard cap on the bio data, because, again, they said you can't speed up scanning for Illuvials no matter how much you pay. So that creates that long-term stability and pricing and value of the blueprints. But if I have the ability to go out and buy speed ups, I can speed up my resource extractors upgrade, so I can make this a mine level 10 or 12 or whatever, whatever's the highest level I get to, and I can extract 500,000 resources basically in a matter of seconds if I'm willing to put enough money into the speed up mechanics here. So any base builder game has that structure available. The question, am I paying for it from Illuvium through the speed up mechanics, or am I paying for it by other players trading on the marketplace for individual resources that they were able to build up? Again, I don't really care as long as Illuvium is getting a cut of both. So again, if players are trading carbon on the open marketplace, as long as Illuvium's getting 2% of whatever the ETH is that they're paying each other for it, I don't care. Let them do it. I mean, it's an economic game that we're playing here that's connected to the real world, and so I don't think we need to be concerned that players are going to play economically. That's the entire construct that we've got here, and so I don't. I think we need to lean into that, not run from that concept for Illuvium Zero. Now, again, it's very different from a game like the Overworlds and like the Arena. There are different mechanics that we've got built in that allow where you can't just pay money and win in those cases, right? So things like the fair launch construct, things like the Ascendant Arena, where you don't get advantages by having better alluvials that have better stats and so on. All of those types of mechanics are important for maintaining competitive gameplay. But again, I think we need to remember the differences in the genres and the types of games that we're building out here. They shouldn't all have identical mechanics to each other because you're trying to design them to be different in the overall world. Good. Yeah, Blichter, exactly. I think you probably summarized my 10-minute, side discussion with one sentence. So avoiding the thematic disconnects with mini games. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about when I say how can we do so in a way that is, still doesn't break your immersion in the world and in the lore. They could fix the element trading by having a marketplace being unlockable, so you can trade elements early on. Yeah, for sure. I think good. So let me jump over here. I think it's other. So the marketplace already exists today. I think the only question is which elements and fuel or which resources and fuel are tradable. I haven't unlocked it. I'm not sure if anyone's far enough along in having unlocked it or has talked to the devs about it. But again, for me, allowing people to trade on the marketplace is fine. Let them trade, take a small percentage of the cut, and call it a day. We want people to be engaging in economic activity within the universe. That's exactly how Illuvium grows. So Jimbo, I don't remember if you were on. I mentioned the fuel. Yeah, this question about fuel valuations and so on a little bit earlier in the stream. So I believe, actually, real quick, let me see. Can I start? I need to. All right, I need to get just a little bit more here so I can start my Solon dredge. Sorry, getting sidetracked for a second here because I've been pushing, everyone that's seen this stream knows, I've been pushing to be able to get at least one extractor for both of my primary types of fuel, because I know that's a bottleneck on the Nexus. So I was able to get my first Krypton gate out, and want to do the Solon Trench as soon as I can get this next batch of silicon out. So coming back to your question, Jimbo, the relative cost and value of fuel once Illuvium 0 is connected to the overworld should be steered by the AI engine that Aaron has talked about in the past. So when I'm extracting Krypton here, at the moment it's 2 per day or whatever, that needs to be dynamic based on the overall usage of fuel in the overworld. So if I have 200,000 players that are buying fuel in the overworld per day, my expectation for the system to be in balance is that my Krypton gate should be producing 1/10 the amount of Krypton as if I have 2 million players that are buying that same amount of fuel in the overworld. Otherwise, the system can't work. It's not going to be sustainable. So when we're looking at the overall resources that are being produced, it's going to, through a combination of upgrades to the level of extractors versus the number of players in the game, it's going to have to dynamically adjust. Otherwise, you're going to break the economic experience for either landholders or game players in the overworld. Both of them depend on that structure being sustainable. So there's no way that, in my mind, you can have it just be a fixed value that excuse me, that never adjusts. So that's very different than in a typical base builder game. But remember that our base builder is not a standalone game. It's an interactive blockchain game that's connected to two other titles economically. And so what that means is we have to have structures in place that ensure that those economies are in balance. So I definitely expect us to see these values fluctuate over time. Ideally, it's going up, but again, as the player base ebbs and flows, it should go up and down. And the individual metagame that players are playing with the economy is within that range of 5% of total fuel that's being used in the overworld is coming from land producers. That you have to balance the amount of fuel that's coming from land producers, and I, as a landholder, I get to decide amongst that value that I've got in storage, when am I going to choose to sell my fuel back into the main game? Am I going to choose to convert it to a different type of fuel? However, all of those decisions, that's where the economic game really shines. But that question of how much am I able to extract has to be linked to the fuel that people are using in the overworld period. Otherwise, the whole concept doesn't work, and it's going to get out of balance too quickly. So, good discussions and questions. So, let's see, speed ups. All right, we're going to use one more speed up here. We're up to level 33. So we've got our Krypton and Solon that's in the process of being extracted now. I want to see how much it costs to do the upgrades for those. Interesting. Okay, so you actually need some of the resources to be able to upgrade the other extractors. So I need Solon in order to be able to upgrade the Krypton gate, as well as my quantum fabricant has to be up at tier 2. Now, for those that were following along with me on the converter, so I don't have Hyperion on this particular plot, so I need to get my quantum fabricant to level 2, as well as a few more resources to be able to build my lathe so that I can convert. I've got enough silicon storage, so I'm not super worried about that. It would not be the worst, probably. It would not be the worst for me to consider upgrading one of my hydrogen pumps here. I've got two level 2 extractors. Let me see. It's only a 4-minute upgrade, and it's pretty quick. Let's start this running real quick while I'm coming up with a game plan for getting my fabricant upgraded. So generally speaking, those that were on a few minutes ago know the overall cost for carbon is the limiting reactor for when you can get your quantum fabricant leveled up. So that is going to be dictated by overall storage. So I saw that a few minutes ago, and as such, I built a couple carbon storage facilities, the silos here. So each one of them can hold 50K. I need to be able to get to 120K. So I'm either going to have to do one more storage facility, which I would prefer not to, just because the structure limit. So I've got a total limit of 30 buildings until I upgrade my Nexus further, which I will certainly do. But I want to be a little bit careful about that. I don't want to have to burn too many buildings over time, and I'm gonna need Krypton, Hyperion, Solon storage here soon enough. So that's another 3 buildings. I've got some more extractors for Krypton and Solon that I want to build. So I'm pretty quickly getting up to the 30 units without doing too much else. So in general, to say nothing of the science building. So in general, I'd like to avoid having to build another storage unit. Doing the upgrade here is pretty quick. 15 minutes is not bad. The overall challenge here is just the cost. 18,000 is a decent amount of silicon. I'll be able to get it fairly quickly because I do have, again, I've got my my excavator and mine here that are upgraded, so I'm able through the mine to get about 3,000 silicon every little cycle here. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and bite the bullet as soon as I finish the upgrade right here on my hydrogen pump. I think I'm just going to go ahead and do one more upgrade to one of the silos for carbon here. That'll allow me to be able to house up to 150, which is well more than I need for the 120K. In the meantime, if I can keep my my carbon pumps going, it'll be pretty soon after that 15 minutes that I'll be able to get to the 120 and be able to start the quantum fabricant upgrading. So I think that's going to be our most efficient way to steer through the next 15-20 minutes or so of development. It may make sense for me to move around so you guys, some of you can see, or you saw me build them earlier. I've got 2 power stations over here that are really juicing up my main extractors. Right now, I've got this mine operating at basically almost 150% efficiency. Actually, if I jump over here, you can see I'm at 147. I think that's important. I want to keep that basically running as best I can. I am, you guys, if I zoom all the way out, you can also see I'm a little bit more limited in my silicon extraction. So as you do a count, you can see I've got a huge amount of carbon on this. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbon plots. I've got 1, 2 hydrogen resources, and then I've got 2 silicon resources on here. So nice thing is that especially early on, this plot's going to be pretty good because I've got so much carbon that I'm cranking out. I'm gonna avoid some of those bottlenecks. However, it is a little bit tougher when I'm constrained by something like silicon. Making sure that I've got decent upgrades that have been done for like my silicon extractors is going to be important too. So again, let's 18K. Let's see, probably doing one more upgrade here is going to be worth it. The other topic that I want to look at, and I mentioned this earlier on the stream too, making sure that you're targeted in when you actually collect your goal rewards is important. So having resources that you can quickly get to that are not stuck in your storage is essential, right? So I think there's no reason for me to delay claiming the speed up tokens because those don't take up any slots. So I'll go ahead and grab those. You can see as I count, I've got 515, 2027. I've got 2,700 silicon in rewards if I need, and so that may be something that if I get really close and it allows me to start the speed up or start the upgrade, because let's say I get to 16 or 17,000 on my silo, I can just grab that real quick and kick it off. That's a pretty good strategic approach to the use of those resources. So we'll keep that in mind, and that's probably something that we will activate if it ends up making the difference for us being able to start versus waiting for one more cycle of resource extraction. Good. So let's see. This guy, he's got 2 minutes left on the speed up, which is not bad. I do want to see how much improvement you get carrying something from 2 to 3. So right now, it would bump it up to, from a 5-minute resource extraction at 3,000. It's basically going to triple it, and it does it in, about 140% of the time. So, let's call it 200 and maybe 30% increase for 140% of the overall time. So, these upgrades are still good. Generally speaking, though, it's actually not as efficient from an upgrade value standpoint as I thought it would be. It's more that you're able to just let it run longer than that you're able to get a lot more resources out. So that's actually something I'll be curious. I want to talk to the devs about. Feels like you should have a little bit higher extraction rate improvement from the upgrades compared to just allowing you to let it run for longer without having to pick it up. Hope they add the information on max fuel and elements you can hold so you don't have to calculate manually your storage capacity. So if you click here, you can see what you're at right now, as far as your current versus your max capacity. So I think it's not too bad at the moment, Wade, but what will be interesting is seeing, and maybe we just need to get a couple good charts or maybe some content creators to put something out that really walk you through per excavator or per converter what's the maximum amount that you're able to gather, and then kind of what's the storage amounts that you need for a certain amount of time in the real world before you're full. So some kind of ratio or charts between those would definitely be useful, and I can see wanting to have that available to us. So all right, we are close. I think one more cycle of the silicon should give it to us, and that should be just about right because this upgrade is finishing as well. So we'll start that mine. That one is actually the one that I think should push us over. So good timing on that. Again, I hate having builders idle. And I'm going to be honest, this plant is really bugging me. You guys can see some of my OCD coming out. I think I'm going to clear this guy just because he irritates me in that I have a super unclean path route. So let's go ahead and just start the destruction of our little stinger plant here. It'll give me a little bit of bump in the speed up credits, which is fine. That's not really why I'm doing it. I honestly just want the pathway to be cleaner. So let's do this. Good. The other thing is, and you guys watched me a little bit, because I can't really move most of the facilities around here because this just happens to be where my resource nodes are. A lot of times when I was trying to click on this little excavator, I was hitting the plant instead. So it's just going to save me a bunch of misclicks to have that out of the way, because he was kind of not ideally situated for me to be able to get to my excavator. Good. Definitely biggest quality of life improvement is going to be a button somewhere, even if it's a paid for building that allows me to kick off all extractors at once. I want those plants to be tradable, and if you don't cut them down for 10 days, the rewards go up. Oh, see, now you're killing me here. Now my internal efficiency mindset is going to be warring with my my preference for a clean base layout and my desire to avoid having to click through a whole bunch of resources to get at what I'm trying to get to. So you're killing me here, Wade. I'm not sure that that's something that I'm so keen on, but but yeah, hey, if the people want it, I'm all for it. You know, we'll have the discussion and we can put in an IAP out. Icy, good to see you, mate. Thanks for jumping out here with us. We are exploring Illuvium 0 on, I guess we're technically on day 2. I was unable to start until today just due to work and other real-life commitments yesterday. But my land plots are about 2 hours and 30 minutes in. We're at level 34 right now, so decent little build-up. Again, I've gotten to where I've got my extractors there for both Solon and Krypton. Don't have them running yet because it's quite frankly a pretty heavy cost in the other resources to be able to start them right now. But we will do so soon. Not Web 3 soon, but in just a few minutes here soon. And we also want our quantum fabricants to be able to be upgraded. So this is an hour and 49-minute upgrade. So that one may be an upgrade that I just queue up at some point here in a bit, and then take a break for a while, and then come back later on. However, I'm torn because it's a 24-hour lead time on the Solon and the Krypton extraction. I kind of want to start the dredging sooner rather than later on both. So storage capacity hit for hydrogen. Okay. And silicon. All right. Good. So let us go ahead and upgrade one of our carbon storages. So that's what we've been building towards for the last 15 minutes or so, is being able to run him. Once that is done, that will allow us to be able to get to 150k capacity, which lets us store enough to get to the 120 that we will need. So yeah, that's definitely the upgrade that we wanted next, because I do want, whenever I make the call to start the fabricant upgrading, I want that to be able to run for a while and not be bottlenecked. The question, am I going to have enough time? Because I'm basically capped out. I'm almost capped out at my carbon now at the 102k capacity. Maybe the most efficient way to do it is get to 100k, start my Krypton gate. This time tomorrow I'll get my first 2 Krypton extraction completed, and then in the meantime we'll be doing the upgrade here and get back to 150. It's a tough decision. How long do I think it takes a newbie to get up to speed on playing Illuvium? So Web3 gamer, it probably depends on which title you're talking about. I will say, if you're familiar with the genres of games, meaning like an auto battler for the arena, open world collectors for the overworld, base builders here for Illuvium 0, they tend to feel like parts of the genre. So and I've played all of them. None of them was particularly intimidating to get up to speed on. I think, you know, for a base builder like this, if you're familiar again with the overall genre and how it works, it's not going to be too wild for people. You know, recognizing that, you know, you've got 3 major types of elements, and then you've got 3 major types of fuel that you're building towards. You know, that's fairly standard, whether it's gold or mana or elixir or iron or whatever. That's pretty common for most base builders. What I would say is there's enough depth, though, where you could play for a while and still not feel like you've mastered it, especially something like the arena, where you've got, you know, a lot of different affinities and classes of alluvials that you're playing. From a base builder standpoint, you know, these typically aren't that difficult, but what you're going to do is spend a fair bit of time trying to optimize your layout, especially as you get more buildings out. You're doing scanning for alluvials, so I don't have any of the scanning facilities that are out yet. Eventually I'll get the singularity scanner and the transducer and so on, and I would be able to research different blueprints. However, trying to squeeze out another 5% of efficiency in my land plot, that's kind of the name of the game for for a base builder like this. So all right, so the question, all right, we're gonna do this because I've been working towards this for most of the morning. We're gonna pay the 100k carbon, and we're gonna start our krypton extraction. Right, so this will take a day. I know I'm not going to be upgrading both Solon Dredge and my krypton extractors here. I'm much more likely, if I end up with spare resources at the end of today, just to build another extractor over here on this Krypton Rift. So no reason not to go ahead and fire it up. That will give me pretty quickly here 2 Krypton by this time tomorrow. And I will definitely want to be using a number of those for some of the more advanced facilities, science facilities, and so on. So again, the singularity, the data bank requires 5 krypton. The singularity scanner requires 3. Hyperion is going to be a challenge for me because again, I don't have it. So pretty soon on my list is going to be the lathe. So that's why steering towards the quantum fabricant at level 2 is my my next, I think, core driving goal that I'm going to be steering to. But again, generally speaking, I feel like we've made good progress on here. I know a handful of you have been with me for most of the morning, so I'm curious. I'm actually open to feedback and curious on your thoughts. For those of you that played yourself, if you were on a tier 3, how efficient do you feel like you were, so that you were able to get to some of these more advanced buildings? Again, we're coming up on just about 3 hours here. Pretty constant. I dropped over to my tier 1 for just a couple minutes, but have been almost exclusively on here and just working through all of the development of the tech tree. Mercury, that's good feedback. So the L3 fabricant takes almost 500,000 carbon for 80k. That's interesting too. Again, I'm doing upgrades on my second storage unit. So if you need 500,000, if I were to upgrade my carbon storage from 3 to 4, it goes up to 100k. If I go from 4 to 5, does anyone know, does that take me to 200k storage, or is it 250? Somebody that maybe has a level 5 storage. I don't really care which resource. Any level 5 storage should be the same. They appear to be identical. But that will be interesting to know if I'm gonna need to do effectively like a third silo to get to that 500k mark by tomorrow, or if instead I could just do a couple upgrades to 2 and not have to take another building slot. So for sure, you're always managing resources in a game like this. Sometimes it's the actual resources that you think of. It's always time to some degree. It's always map space. And in this case, we also have the additional resource constraint of structure limits that's been added. So level 4 has 100k storage. Yeah, Ricky, what does level 5 have? Do you know? Do you have a level 4 that you could click on and see what the upgrade to level 5 would take you to? All right, level 5 has 300k. Okay, thank you. All right, so yeah, so if you were to take 2 storages up to level 5, then yeah, you would have enough to do the level 3 fabricants. That's probably what I'll do. At least taking 1 to level 5. I guess you could, if you didn't mind the additional building, you could build a third silo. Take 2 silos to level 4 and 1 to level 5. That gets you there as well. Level 5 takes you to 500k storage. Okay. Level 5 requires engineering workshop at level 5 too. Okay, so that's a new Nexus upgrade as well, which presumably, 6 hours. So yeah, so one of the other general ideas that I've typically seen in games like this, your main building in our case, the Nexus, this is something you're almost always going to want to upgrade overnight just because it takes forever. So looking at this, I'll need 1 Krypton. I've got one that's going to be coming about 24 hours from now. As discussed, that's something that you can't speed up in game. So this is probably going to be an upgrade that I'll shoot for tomorrow night into Monday morning my time. So helpful to know that. I want to make sure that I save at least 1 Krypton, whether it's from this particular gate or if I do build a second extractor over here and pull it out. So good note, because that's going to be for sure a bottleneck, is eventually that engineering workshop for us for taking it to level 5. So good. All right, so where are we on time? We've got 10 minutes left on this. I am unsure how much of a mistake I made on my time estimates here. To get to 120 carbon, we basically were at 0. It took us about 10 minutes. I'm probably going to want to do a couple more upgrades to some of my carbon extractors here. Probably this guy, because he's at a good efficiency. Actually, he's a higher efficiency than this one even, because of my 2 power stations. I'll probably upgrade these 2, so that I've got 3 over here that are all excavator level 2s. That should allow me to pretty quickly get to that 120k as soon as I finish this silo development. So I want to make sure that I'm pretty consistently keeping my upgrades running, at least on the carbon for now. Need that Solon for the level 5 workshop. So I will say, I'm good on Solon here, honestly. I've got 3 different Solon trenches that I can build out on my land plot, and I'm sorry, 4. I was gonna say it should be 4 because I should have 6 total. So 1, 2, I've got 1 already built here, 3, and 4. So Solon for me is in pretty good shape. I also think because Hyperion is going to be used more for the blueprints and the crafting and so on, I'm probably pretty well situated for early gameplay at the launch of the overworld. I'm going to have a decent bit of Krypton here for traveling, and then I'm going to have a lot of Solon for the shard curing and stuff. So generally, I'm like I mentioned, I'm still pretty happy. It was just a minted land. I minted this tier 3 during the land sale. So, but overall, pretty satisfied with where it landed. Of course, you could always be a little bit better in some different ways, but overall, I'm pretty happy. Need Solon for upgrading excavation too. Okay, that's good feedback. I will definitely. So one maybe guidance for any of you that are playing too. Be very careful about how you spend your fuel, especially here early on, because I think everyone's seen if you've got a 24-day lag in when you're able to get more, 24-hour lag and when you're able to get more, you're going to want to be real careful to spend it on the most important things and not bottleneck yourself. Web3 Gamer, so Redush, good to see you again, mate. Thanks for jumping out and joining us today. Web3 Gamer, how have I enjoyed playing this versus other base builders? I'd say it's solid. there are so something like a Clash of Clans is very different because in that you're along the way of building your base, you're also you start off by learning like combat mechanics there through PvE. So there are let's call them little missions, side missions that you can run as you're starting out. It introduces you to the different units and the combat mechanics. So there's a little bit more to do there because you've got combat that you're actually learning how to engage in at the same time. So that's different. From a base development standpoint, though, I think it's really solid. I would say better than the majority of base builder, kind of idle clicker base builder games that I've played. I mean, the graphics are really clean. We knew that was going to be the case with anything that Illuvium puts out. It's got, from a let's say tech and development tree standpoint. I think so obviously I know some of the structures from just having been in the community for a while, but generally speaking, if I'm brand new and I'm looking at this, I can pretty easily see what my development pathway is going to be based on where I want to go. So the question, if I'm geared towards a specific fuel or I'm geared towards research and blueprints and so on, I can kind of path out my way to get there in a pretty efficient approach. So overall, I'm pretty positive on where we're at. Again, you're gonna always want to be able to have engaging mechanics that keep people coming back day after day. In this case, the connectivity with the economic metagame that's running is going to be that thing for most people that are going to be playing the lands. You're going to have people that basically they just run land plots on behalf of other people. They like or they want to get paid for or whatever, running the activities, and then someone else is going to be selling the fuel, and then they're going to split the proceeds. So I think there's going to be good content out for a variety of different people for that. Claiming hydrogen is plus experience to increase levels. Ricky, I'm not sure I followed that exactly. Oh, you're saying I should be claiming my hydrogen even though I can't actually store more, just because when you claim resources it increases your experience points. I see. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. To your point, there's no reason not to, because I can just restart it, and when I do end up either using the resources or increasing my silos, it's gonna allow me to pretty quickly fill it back up anyways. Yeah, that's fair. I'm not really trying to chase level competition. Again, starting a day behind kind of puts me out of the running for that. But again, maybe I can win an efficiency award for level grinding for tier 3s. The connection to the other games is fantastic. The meta game design of what's going on, Aaron and the team did a really nice job at. One of the risks that I had highlighted for the team is that you need to ensure you didn't build in so much tech debt that as the number of games and titles grows over time that you can't manage that. And when I say tech debt, for someone who's not who doesn't have a development background or whatever, that means the cost that you have to pay to maintain previous systems, while you would rather be spending that time in those developer resources building something new that you can monetize or that's going to provide more interesting gameplay to your players. So anything that you have to go back and sort of pay for retroactively is what we would consider tech debt. So the question of how much did you build in by having this interoperable blockchain game where all three of the titles are connected to each other in unique ways, that's the big concern that I've had. And when I interviewed with Kieran, we talked about that a little bit. I've talked to some of the other team members about it. one of the ways that they are trying to manage this that I think makes sense is having as few points of connectivity across the titles as possible. Now, you might think that's a bad thing, and from a mechanic standpoint, you can argue that maybe it is from a gamer perspective. So let's imagine for a second that in Overworld, my main point of connectivity to the arena is the alluvials that I catch. They go into my deck and I can use them to fight in the arena, right? That's the only place that I'm connected to the arena through the assets and the time and resources that I spend in Overworld. Similarly, the Illuvium 0 land plot here, there's two main points of connectivity, right? One is the fuel sales that then fund the overworlds, regardless of the type of fuel that you're selling. Basically, you're selling resources back into the main overworld game. The second one is blueprints, and so you have a rare resource that you are able to generate randomly through RNG and scanning and gameplay and so on out here in the land plot that then doesn't have competitive mechanics. It just has cosmetic mechanics into the arena and the overworld to a lesser degree, right? You're mainly going to be focused on, I think, the skins probably both the overworld and the arena, but you're gonna want to have those skins be visible anytime you've got your ranger out there, your weapons, and so on. So right now there are three primary connectivity points between the games that we've built up. Any one of those connection points creates both the risk of failure and additional costs for integration and balance in any future game that we launch in the Illuvium ecosystem. So, if you have to balance fuel sales that are going against the overworld with selling fuel into the go-kart racing game a few years from now, that is tech debt that you've incurred that you're now having to spend time balancing, building out mechanics and structures so that you are able to connect to all of these future titles in a way that doesn't break the former ones. So you have to be very careful not to incur too much of that tech debt through the connectivity across the different titles. And I think being very cautious about only establishing places that have connectivity where you absolutely need them is a good way to do so. So overall, I'm pleased by what I've seen and having talked to the team, what they've been trying to steer towards in this regard. But we want to keep that in mind, that every time we've got a brilliant idea as a community on how we could integrate one element of this game, make it more engaging, we want to connect something, connect a bunch of drones that can go out into the overworld and do some form of combat mechanics or whatever. All of those, we have to be careful that we're not building in too much complexity that's going to impact us 10, 15 years, 20 years from now, when we would prefer to not have to balance all of those disparate systems. So this, I think, is a really important point that as a community we just need to be aware of. Coming back to Icy's comment that the connection is fantastic, and I think the part of the beauty of it is in how targeted it has been and how minimalistic that has been, because you want them connected but in a very careful and thoughtful way. Oh, thanks, Ricky. Yeah, I continue to be impressed by what the teams put out. Being able to be a part of the community for the last year and a half, and then now part of the council has been really exciting. There's so many good lessons that I think other Web3 studios and developers can really take from what Illuvium has been doing. Again, everyone's got different genres that they're building towards. Every solution needs to be a little bit customized in how you're building, but there's a lot of good lessons that I think carry over to others. So, how are we doing? We are... I have to say, it does not feel super grindy right now. Part of it, obviously, is me being able to talk with all of you guys. But but you know, it's only been I want to say, what, probably, those that have been on the stream, you could correct me, 6, maybe 7 times that I've felt the need to do a speed up on something, and those have always been 30 minutes to an hour on a particular building to get to this point. Only been a handful of times that I've been, I think, more than 15 minutes or so on upgrades thus far. And still feel like we're progressing pretty quickly. I did get, for those that maybe didn't see me click on it, I did get our silo upgraded. So now we're at 150k max capacity on the carbon. That is going to be our quantum fabricant next upgrades that we're going to steer towards. And so what I'm doing now, I'm upgrading a couple of my carbon. I've got 2 more carbon excavators over here. One that's a level 2, this one that's going to level 2 now, and I'm going to take this one up as well, which I've been a little bit inefficient because this is like my highest efficiency rating because I've got 2 power plants nearby. So I will definitely be a little bit more careful when the main game comes out, because I think the early days are going to be really valuable for the fuel and the blueprints. But at the moment, it has, it'll probably only cost me a couple minutes here or there, but I will finish doing the upgrades, and then that should supercharge our speed at the carbon here to get up to that 120k. So overall, really pleased with how far we got. I came in, I think I said my goal was to get to level 20 in the first few hours. So let's call it, we're actually exactly at the 3-hour mark now, and we are at level 37. So pretty good overall. Again, I think pretty solid efficiency. And let's start our excavator there, and let's upgrade this guy. And we will be cooking pretty quickly here on our carbon extraction. Mabsy, good to see you out here. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, Ricky, no problem. I appreciate you being out here and engaging with us today. Man, you guys have had some really good questions. This is exactly what I'm always hoping for when I've got the council office hours. I know a lot of people probably like being in Discord, and that's fine too. I love hopping on Discord for a little bit as well. I would say, though, I enjoy the chance for you guys to see what I'm playing on stream, as well as you guys can actually see me a little bit as we're talking through everything. I think it kind of helps with the connection with the community. So good questions. I'm happy to field anything else here as well. A lot of time on Illuvium 0, a lot of time on the interconnectivity in our discussions. 10 minutes today after the stream potentially. Yeah, I see. We can chat. Throw me a DM in Discord. I'll make sure that I remember, because I will probably be jumping off for a little bit to get food here after I do wrap up this stream. But I can make sure that we touch base later on today. Speaking of, I need to, for those that haven't seen, I need to try and see on the voting for the gaming awards. That's definitely going to be something I want to spend some time on this weekend and look at the top 5 for each one of the categories. Super excited about that. There's some amazing games and studios and blockchains creators that are out there. All right, so let us see. So again, we've talked about Nexus level 5 is going to be tomorrow. That's going to be one of our Krypton. Engineering Workshop 5 is going to be one of our first Solon following that. So again, let's say one of each of those is going to be earmarked. I don't think I have the capacity in Silicon yet. That actually is probably a good next upgrade for me. That's my hydrogen. I could take silicon up to 100k. Yeah, I think that's going to have to be our next upgrade to ensure that we're not bottlenecked there later on.
and I want to just keep this carbon going. The carbon is our lifeblood right now. So nice to have so much of it. A little bit of a pain having to grab it every 45 seconds or so, but that's all good. This is strictly overworld gameplay related. Both mining and capturing the overworld have some nuance, while harvesting is comparatively basic. Thoughts on the state of harvesting? Yes and no, Blichter. So the harvesting itself is basic. That's kind of the nature of the beast for this genre of game. The part that's not is the prioritization and development of the tree, of the tech tree and the building tree. It's the decision making that you are engaged in what you're going to upgrade. But the primary game that you're engaging in is the marketplace game with the real world. It's not in like, oh, let me just click to excavate more here, and hit the button for the next 5 minutes. That's kind of a necessary evil, and frankly, by design, it should be fairly simplistic, because if you've got to use massive brain power for the strategy of like every time you're clicking a button here in the game, it's really not manageable. So base building types of games are ones that tend to be such that you're going to spend a while figuring out your layout, you're going to figure out your upgrade path, and then you want it to be fairly idle for a while until you engage in the core mechanic. And again, in like a Clash of Clans, that's the combat mechanic, your base defense layout, developing your attack strategies and engaging in them in like clan battles. So that's the mechanic that you're wanting to be engaging. The actual upgrade of the base itself is intended to be, a little bit less complex. For us, I think when we get to the point where we've got connected marketplaces with the real world economy, you've got your storage, you've got your blueprint decisions that you're making, that's where the game should be engaging. Now, the question, do I think it needs more to be engaging long term? Yes, probably. But remember, I'm one of hundreds of economic game players who, when I would play World of Warcraft, I would be happy to spend 30% of my time sitting at the auction house working, trying to find deals, trying to make more money, flipping items, and engaging in sales with different players, speculating on future prices of in-game assets. That's what, in my mind, this is going to be with the fuel and the resources and the blueprints and so on. So that's the type of player that this game is going to appeal to. This is not going to be a game that appeals to someone who wants to get out there and start just blowing things up in the overworld. This is not the same as an auto battler. I think that's a feature, not a bug, because you're going to have players that like this style of game, and whether we're talking about tier 0 or the paid tier lands, that are going to be happy to come in and be a part of the Illuvium ecosystem because they like this genre. And that's why when we talk about future expansions, game titles that we're going to want to build into the ecosystem, in my mind, it should be on initially. You got to make sure that you're keeping your current player base happy. So you need to be building out enough content that is meaningful for the existing gamers. But you also want to be adding new customers, new players to your game. The best way to do that is to expand into a different genre, because that immediately increases your player base. And when you look at different demographics that gravitate towards different genres of games, someone that wants to engage in a game that's like a collector, there's a decent bit of overlap in people that want to let's say build a simulator game where maybe you want to design your own plot of land, not like in a base builder mechanic, but you want to have your own house. You want to have your own, layout of your nexus. And, maybe we turn our tier 0 land plot nexus into your own customizable base, and you make it a simulation game. And you have your own alluvials walking around in the base with you. That is a different demographic of player that we could appeal to, that we don't today, right? Meanwhile, we don't have a MOBA today or a first-person shooter. All of our games, even the overworld, tend to be more strategy collector types of games. So could we and when should we build out an FPS that whether you're controlling alluvials or you're just controlling the ranger, I think there's different directions you could go with it, depending on how you integrate it with the lore. But those different genres of games are going to appeal to different players. They're going to have different values for esports purposes. And so making sure that you are broadening the user base as much as possible while keeping good connectivity between each of the titles, I think that has to be our main strategic focus as we think about the next round of expansion and development once these games are fully live later on in 2023. How difficult do I think it will be to onboard new players after the game is out versus only the current community that's here? I think no more difficult than any other high quality games. So getting users' attention is always kind of the name of the game in the gaming industry. So you're always fighting for mind share from players. So you've got to engage with influencers. You've got to have a game that's interesting enough that a player will tell their friends about it, and they'll be willing to pick it up and try it out. I've got dozens of gamer friends from different guilds and games that I've played with in the past that are interested in Illuvium, and I've talked with them about it. I've been waiting to ensure that we had good enough gameplay that they might be willing to engage with it. But having now the overworld out, the arena, Illuvium 0 here, I think if I were to show this type of content to them, there would at least be a solid amount of interest. And when the games are actually live and not in a beta format, then they're going to be willing to jump in and try them out. The question, can you keep them, is always the long-term challenge. Is you've got to make the game interesting enough that people don't drop out after a couple months. And so that's where you talk about end game content and what can you do after your 175th run out into the overworld, right? Is that 176 going to be interesting enough that you want to still engage with the game? And again, there's different ways you can do that. It's genre specific. We probably don't have time to go into all of that today. But I definitely think that these games will be attractive to gamers, which is what they have to be for the project to be sustainable. Again, I have paid money and played worse base building games than right now what I'm doing here with Illuvium 0. I have paid money and played worse creature collector games than the overworld, than the arena auto battler. So again, the bar, I think we've hit the bar for a bit of a product viability already with the current beta status. To make it what I think it can be long term, that we've got to build out those long term engaging game mechanics that keep people coming back for months and months and months into the future. Grey Coast, yeah, the RTS is an interesting one. There's a couple other RTS games, Thalon's one, that are kind of leaning into that model. Definitely, you could build something like an RTS here. What I would see is resource looting. I think fits as long as it's not like your own independent land plot. So. I think I mentioned it earlier in the stream. If I have to worry that these 90,000 carbon that I've got can be stolen from me by another land player, very much less interested in owning land, because I want to be able to develop my land plots, and basically be free to gather the resources that I want to sell and engage in the economic game. That's kind of what was always communicated as the goal of Illuvium Zero Lands. Now, can I have open world points of interest that give me additional value that I then want to spend resources to build out an army to go out and capture, and you have the same opportunity to go out and try and capture that same spot? Absolutely, I'm open to that. I'm not going to pull up the overworld right now, but anyone that knows the overworld map, we've got the current regions. In this case, it's only Crimson Waste that's open now, but we'll have more when we have the other 6 regions that are added. You can build in very interesting points into the overworld map that integrates with Illuvium Zero land plots, and I could then have to send an army out, and it has travel time to go gather a specific resource. Maybe there's a let's say there's a Solon rift that opens up in the middle of the overworld, and I can send out drones that go out and can mine that rift, right? But someone else can do the same, and they can send out attack drones for me that they want to use to capture, right? So then you can get in all different sorts of unit mechanics. You can talk about how and what ways would you integrate the alluvials with that. That's an interesting mechanic that I think adds replayability to the game, as long as you're not negatively impacting people's individual land plots, right? They should have an option of if and how they want to engage in that gameplay, because again, RTS is not the genre that we've built the Illuvium Zero as, right? And if I'm spending, frankly, I think a half an ETH for the floor price for a tier 1 land plot. If I'm spending $600-$700 for a plot of land, the idea that I can get wrecked on my own land plot for that, that changes the calculation pretty seriously. You've got to think about balance of different tiers of land plots as well. If I've got a tier 1, am I ever going to be able to compete against, this tier 3 that I have if I want to go take your stuff? And so there's balance issues that you have to be real cautious about. But again, as far as the chance to compete in like RTS types of mechanics, I think can be good as long as it's integrated in an appropriate way. Good discussion. And I love RTS too, right? I think people ask me what's my favorite genre of game, my favorite game that I've ever played. I think StarCraft 2 is probably my favorite game if I just go like cross genre. It's not the one that I spent the most time playing or played for the longest time period, but when I think back to my own gaming experiences, that's definitely one that sticks out at me as one of my favorite. And the RTS genre as a whole, going all the way back to like the original. So when I say Warcraft, I don't mean Warcraft 2. I mean Warcraft 1 that I played. RTS is absolutely one of my favorite genres. So I would love it if we could come up with a reasonable way to integrate the RTS genre within Illuvium. Yeah, RTS also, RTS blows the auto battler genre out of the water for esports and attracting new gamers, right? So there's, it's more complex. Balance is really tough to do well in like an RTS genre, especially if you've got multiple factions. Today, I think you've only got 2 real potential factions that we know of, right? You've got the alluvials and you've got drones that exist in the world. So I think for sure you could lean into that. You could lean into the different affinities of alluvials, and you could have a fire faction, a water faction, etc. And you could build in some different mechanics that way. But overall, I would say yeah, making sure that you're balancing it is a very complex element of an RTS that takes a lot of time. So it's already, I think it's going to take a while for us to finish balancing the arena, and then you think about the stats that each Illuvial is going to have for future titles. That goes back to what I mentioned about tech debt earlier, that you got to be real careful that if my Ramphie has a specific speed attribute and a specific attack attribute and so on, the way that you balance that against an RTS versus in the auto battler can make it very complex too. Yeah, thank you, Walking Feather. I appreciate that. I being on the council for me is really fantastic opportunity. I think it plays to a lot of my own personal strengths and experiences, both from a business development standpoint, general Web3 knowledge, and then my gaming background. So yeah, for sure, this is super exciting to be a part of. And having been a software developer, although not a game developer, I feel like I have enough meaningful experience that I'm not going to suggest something that's just out of the blue crazy or stupid from a resource standpoint for the team. I don't necessarily need Kira to tell me that's a dumb idea for everything, because I've made a lot of those mistakes myself as a project lead and IT manager in the past. So. All right, so let's check in on how we're doing. We've been keeping our carbon resource gathering running pretty well for the last 15-20 minutes. We are right on the cusp of being able to hit that 120k mark and pushing towards our fabricant upgrade. That is super exciting. We also so as I mentioned, the main value of that, there's a couple upgrades that require it. The main one is the Hyperion lathe. Being able to build this so that we can get Hyperion and we're not bottlenecked, because all of my nodes that are here currently are Solon and Krypton, not currently, that are always going to be on this land plot, are Solon and Krypton. So not being locked out of Hyperion is going to be essential to being able to push forward with some of the more advanced buildings, especially the blueprint scanning, which I'm super interested in. Mercury, having played all of the modes now, you can see burnout becoming a potential issue. So I think there's certainly a risk of that. I expect that players are going to begin to gravitate towards whatever the genre is they're most interested in. So I like the auto battler, and I feel like if it's something that I spend a lot of time working on and staying up to date in the meta, I would be pretty good at. But it's not my favorite, and so I don't see myself doing a whole lot of arena. I'll make sure that I'm good enough that I'm not sort of a liability to myself when I'm out in the overworld, but that's not where I'm going to spend most of my time. I will definitely, like I said, be running at least a couple land plots depending on time investments, engaging in the trading and the metagame that goes on around fuel sales. This will for sure, Illuvium 0 will be one of my go-tos. I think I'm going to like the overworld mechanics. It's collectors are games that have always appealed to me too. That's just kind of a key part of my personality, so I will be doing that. Alright, so we have enough resources to push to upgrade our fabricant now. The only question that I'm wrestling with is if I should maybe do a couple more quick storage structures, just some of the first tiers. I think I'm going to do at least a couple lower tier ones. It only takes a few seconds here to run them out, and that will let us do a better job of gathering resources over the next couple hours while that upgrade is running. So let's see. Right. right. All right. Yeah, let's do that. Even if we don't end up upgrading them too far, I'll at least take them to level 2. Just another 12, 50k or so would be nice to not be bottlenecked and to be able to get the most value out of our resources here. Yeah, Wade, I do. My goal is to try and do a live session on a weekly basis and just have what I'm calling them as council office hours. Again, just kind of a chance for you guys to come out, engage with the community, answer questions, see what you guys are seeing, right? Especially in the beta modes, but I'll probably be doing the same here, even after the full betas are out and the gameplay's live. Especially something like Illuvium 0, where it's kind of passive, right? I can be pushing for some upgrades while we're out here talking. And most of the time I'm spending my focus and attention with you guys just talking through current topics, because I can do a lot of this passively. Again, that's one of the advantages of something like a base builder. Good. I think I want to take these guys up at least to level 2. The question is if I also maybe do a few more upgrades on some of these extractors. I definitely want to get to where I can start the dredging of the Solon so that it's finished about the same time tomorrow. So again, having 100k worth of silicon is going to be important. So let's see. This, I think, this has 50. That's hydrogen. Here's my silicon. This is 50k. Yeah, so if I can finish taking this up also to the same tier, 8-minute upgrade. Let's do that. That will let me be able to start and not get bottlenecked on my Solon dredge here. And also, once I decide to build a couple more trenches, I can have a few of them starting at one time. I think that's going to be a key advantage. And for 8 minutes, that's not too bad. Good. Let's see. So, to some of the comments as well, that if you have, if you've got fully pathed out routes around that may speed up some of the development. We'll go ahead and do that. And let's move this guy over here. And I'm not entirely sure. I haven't been able to see a big improvement on the speed ups, but again, there's no harm in it right now. I've got enough space over here. It doesn't impact negatively the efficiency in any way. So let's see this guy. So what activity or action in playing Zero is most monotonous personally? I think just clicking to start the resource gathering. I had mentioned this. Whether we do it as a general quality of life building or it's like more of a a resource sink, I would like to have a single building that when I hit the button, it allows me to gather all the resources at one time, as well as start the pumping for other resources. So a common activity is going to be, I want to gather all the resources first thing in the morning, start all my extractors going so that I don't have any kind of time loss to that. So that's probably the most monotonous, again, compared to other base builder games too. Some are more or less easy. I will say the multi-clicks on starting the extraction is for me a problem. I know there's a cost. So here, let me wait till one of these finishes and I can explain it visually. So here's my hydrogen pump, right? So if I want to click this pump button, right now there's no cost in resources for me starting this pump up. right? So I'm going to get 500 hydrogen when I'm done, but I don't have to pay krypton, or I don't have to pay carbon to start that. If I have the ability to start resource extraction and it's free, I should always have at most 1 click and ideally 0. Ideally, it should start on its own without me having to push the button. So having to come down here and click excavate and then click start activity, those are wasted clicks, and that's not necessary. You're slowing down the player for no value. So if I click the excavate button and it costs me any resource at all, whether it's silicon or hydrogen in this case, to start the extraction, you can make an argument that as a player, I should not have to, I should be warned before I spend a resource, and then there's a fair point there. But it should at most be 1 click, never 2, for that type of an extraction activity. And if there's no cost, I should never be paying anything to extract in terms of timing. So, yeah, the converters starting on their own is again, it's not monotonous so long as so much as just unnecessary clicking that I think we should streamline. And again, that's kind of a common concept in base builders. But at a minimum, it should never be more than 1 click, right? It should never be 2 to do a single activity in a kind of idler base builder game. It'd be nice to incorporate your Illuvials and Illuvium 0. The more interoperability, the better. Yeah, yes and no, Great Coast. So to the point, I mentioned, as long as we're not kind of introducing complex tech debt to do it, I'm okay with it conceptually. Yeah, I just want to be cautious in the way that would actually work. But yeah, fundamentally, anything that puts our Illuvials more at the center of the universe, I'm in favor of. Right? I think I mentioned that earlier. We want to make sure that we're not Shardium, that we're always Illuvium, and that's always steering our focus towards the Illuvials themselves at the core of the universe and the gameplay. Again, that's true whether it's the overworld, is true whether it's the auto battler. The auto battler, it's pretty easy because the Illuvials are almost always at the center of the universe. If augments become augments or other gear and equipment ever begins to take center stage over the Illuvial, that's a balance issue that we would have to address. But generally, it's going to be the case for the auto battler. Left click should auto perform the building task, and right click should get options for upgrades and moves and so on. Again, I think as long as we're continually steering towards simplification of the user interface, as few clicks as possible, the concept of left and right click for me shouldn't really have to exist, because this should be a fully mobile enabled game. So it should just be kind of clicks and holds. But yeah, if you're playing on a PC or Mac or whatever, and you've got a mouse, yeah, left and right simplicity is good too, I guess. Converters have a passive collection of resources. Is there a reason you're not using them? Yeah, Botch, so it's a good question. So I have been really careful about avoiding the structure limits. And I wanted to make sure that I could get the Hyperion Lathe enough storage out and the science as quickly as possible. I also thought that I would probably have put out a few more Krypton and Solon extractors to this point, but again, just it's been a little bit of a resource constraint and timing constraints. So I've been really careful about the structure limit, not wanting to have to delete and restart things. I am pushing for the Hyperion Lathe because that's the resource that I don't have any of passively from my land plot. So that has been actually my primary goal today, was getting to where I could upgrade the Quantum Fabricant to get the lathe out. So that is on my list. coming back to your question, and I'm open to the feedback, because again, this is my first few hours playing. Am I giving up a lot of resources by not having converters that are already out there? I'm open. If you say the answer is yes, then maybe I'll throw out like a silicon and hydrogen converters if there's a solid enough return from it. Scoriax and others suggest the ability to zoom out. Do you agree? Yes, I agree. I definitively want the ability to see the entirety of my land plot at one time in a single window. So absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly with that concept. Here, we'll start this up to level 2. It's just a 1 minute build. So yeah, so Bot, you tell me, if I'm missing a fair bit of free resources by not having built this photo disintegration plant and the condenser plant, I will definitely build those. Using those for tier 1. All right, so it's only a 1 minute build time, and for sure I will want the ability at some points to convert my carbon into other resources, just because I've got so much of it on my plot. So yeah, I'll build one of each, and just kind of see what the ratio is of extraction to conversion for the converters. So again, it only takes a minute, and I've got a long upgrade coming here in just a second with the fabricants. So makes sense for me to build those all out, as quickly as I can. Again, I'm not really hurting for carbon extraction at this point now that I've upgraded. The question, should I probably upgrade this hydrogen pump down here? I think I upgraded everything. These are all level 2s. Yeah, these are all level 2s right now. I'm not doing the Solon just because it's so expensive. At the moment, I don't have the Hyperion to burn on it anyways. Alright, so let's do... Alright, the converters are, I think, most efficient when they are... Oh, no, that's interesting. Okay. So it's much more efficient. Is it because I'm close to the fabricants, or because I'm close to my Nexus? Or is it the workshop? Does anyone know? I'll play around with it and see after it finishes building. I thought the converters were just more efficient if you were further away from those resources. Maybe that's what was happening as well. Maybe I was just getting further away from... Yeah, I was getting further away from my 2 hydrogen extractors. Let's see. I'll try and stick it all the way in the corner and see if I can get up to like a 150 efficiency. Because I was next to the roads, the pathways, each step of that, so that shouldn't have been the reason that it was more or less efficient. Definitely was relative positioning to something in my base. So, let's see. Oh, these mines are okay. So let's see. Here, it's going down as I get further away. Is it just the power plant? I guess that's it. It looks like it's just being closer to the power plant is giving me... If I'm sitting right on top of the power plant, it's giving me 175 efficiency. And as I get further away, it's reducing it. So, okay. Well, that's interesting. So it didn't... So as I do collect... Fuel silicon conversion with hydrogen. So 250 for 1702. Okay. Yeah, so... To your point then, clearly I am missing some efficiency Because I don't have these out and built yet. Because I mean that it's almost like a 5 to 1. No, it's 250 for 1700. Yeah, it was almost like 6 or 7 to 1. Yeah, Botch, I think you're right. It's the proximity to the power plants, because I've got 2 power plants here that ramped it up to 170. And yeah, as I put this converter closer to the silicon converter, it also dropped a fair bit in efficiency. So yeah, for sure. So if I do, yeah, so convert, I've got convert, collect, and upgrade as my main options here. Again, I'm probably just going to do some conversions while this is while my bigger upgrades are running, but definitely interesting, an interesting mechanic and a way to speed that up. So yeah, I will for sure be adding a couple more of those once I finish my fabricant to my land plot. At least as long as I've got enough structural flexibility here. Yeah, I'm at 26, so should be okay. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 more extractors for my fuel that I do want to get out later today. But seems overall okay. So fuels hydrogen conversion with carbon, hydrogen conversion with silicon. Nice. Yeah, so for sure, especially while I'm sort of capped out on the resource, that is a good deal. I should be cranking both of these out with carbon while I can't extract any because my my storage is full. Nice. Well, good, Botch. Thanks. That's good feedback. You definitely taught me some important points there. All right. Do we upgrade our hydrogen for longer term storage purposes, or do we just jump into the fabricant now? All right, let's do this. I think I'm gonna do one more hydrogen upgrade. So what we'll have been able to accomplish, this should put us right at the 4-hour mark, is we got up to 100k storage or 150k storage for each. We got our first Krypton gathering that we were able to run. We got level 2s on most of our extractors here. Not all, but most of them. We were able to get a couple of our converters out. That's definitely nice. We'll be using those a little bit more, especially once we can get them upgraded and do higher amounts of resources per click. Definitely your click economy is going to be important. You're going to want to have things upgraded further so you aren't having to run every 45 seconds. We got all of our resource extractors out. We got our engineering workshop and our Nexus up to level 4, and we will be starting our quantum fabricant upgrade to level 2 so that we can push for our Hyperion lathe after that's done. So pretty good 4 hours. We're at level 43. My guess is we'll be basically closing in at level 44, 45 by the time I finish this here in the next few minutes. So good. So once I get to that point and we can finish this next upgrade, I am going to take a break and wrap up the stream at that time. So if anyone has any other questions or feedback or thoughts, I've got another 5 or 6 minutes here before I close this thing out. So I do want to just say a big thank you to everyone who joined me. Probably most of you all are already subscribed to my channel, which I appreciate. If you're not and you want to join me for more Illuvium content, some council office hours on the weekends, certainly if you subscribe or hit the bell, it'll give you a warning when I'm about ready to go live. I will again be doing this more in the coming weeks ahead. So I really appreciate the engagement, good questions and discussions. A lot of this feedback I'm able to use as good input into our council discussions for a number of topics as we go forward. So definitely appreciate each one of you. And yeah, I mean we've got some legends in the community that are out here too. Jimbo, thanks for joining us, mate, as always. Yeah, we had a lot of really good engaged folks throughout the stream, so can't say enough how much I appreciate it. Yeah, pleased with how far we got in this first 4 hours of our Illuvium Zero usage. Also, one just general note was interesting to me. You know, running obviously a couple of the speed ups, but generally I did not have enough time to be able to switch back over to the tier 1 plot that I've got, or didn't feel the necessity to do so while we were out here. Certainly could have done so to kind of speed some things up, and when things are a little less buggy and switching plots, I will of course do that in the real world. But overall, the tier 3 was able to keep us pretty busy for this first day. So yeah, thanks guys. Definitely I appreciate each one of you that came out. So yeah, like I said, we've got about 3 minutes here on this one, and then we'll start the quantum upgrade, and we'll wrap up the stream. So any other last minute questions or thoughts? No, if not, then good. We'll just finish up with a few more resource gathering. I'll do a conversion here. I do like these converters, so I want to play around with those in the ratio of what that's going to give me too. Now that I realize I was missing out on that a little bit, but that's the advantage of having a good community that's out and can give you feedback along the way. Yeah, thanks Mercury. Appreciate you joining us today too. Good questions and feedback. And we'll be close to starting our Solon as well. If we can finish up a few more gathers of our silicon will be there as well, and it'll definitely be nice. Good. All right, level 44, not bad. Can't wait to get this. Yeah, Grey Coast agree. Can't wait to get it all connected to the blockchain for sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a handful of bugs and some additional elements we need to get to make sure that the games are as engaging as they need to be. But man, this is for sure going to open up some eyes to the concept of Web3 games once we get there, whether it's second quarter or third quarter of this year. Yeah, definitely cannot wait. This is going to start melting faces, as we talked about for later this year. Yep, very good. All right, just about a minute left on our last hydrogen pump. Trying to decide if there's any value at all in doing. Yeah, I mean, while I'm full on capacity, I guess what I should be doing is queuing this up so that I can gather this as soon as the storage finishes up. That's probably the most efficient way to do it, is just make sure you always have your converters done and ready to go when you're full on resources of one type, but you're able to use another type. Is just make sure that you're always starting them. Good. One more. Nice. One more mine. Perfect. Alright, so let's start our dredging from our Solon. So that will finish also this time tomorrow. So again, only 4 hours in, and we've got both a Krypton and a Solon that are active and running. And get our mines going off again. And here goes our upgrade for hydrogen. Awesome. And start our quantum fabricants. Very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a very effective first handful of hours for our tier 3 here. So, some of you, I'm curious if anyone got further. Again, level 44 in 4 hours, if anyone was out here grinding on it. Curious to see, throw up your, we'll call it a score, I guess, to some degree. Throw up your scores here in the chat. And give us comments along the way. But generally speaking, this has been productive and fun. Yeah, definitely a fun first morning of Illuvium 0. So hopefully most of you watching have the chance to get some land plots. If you don't, there's a number of giveaways that are going to be going on Twitter and in Discord and Illuvium. So join us there, pick up your own lands. If not, Tier 0 lands will be coming out soon, and we look forward to seeing all of you out running around and developing your own bases on the surface of Illuvium. So thank you all for this. We're going to wrap up the stream now, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.